Hey, can everybody hear me? Oh no.
I can hear you.
It is time,
Hello.
Everybody, for the Batmosphere. Welcome back. Sorry, having a little bit of technical issues here for a second. I am Captain Logan, and Dan, welcome back, man.
Hey, thanks. I'm Dan.
It's good to see you.
Welcome back, man.
Yeah.
Sorry. I'm welcome back, man.
He's welcome back, man. Sorry, I got all confused because I was having technical audio things, but we're good. I don't think anybody probably heard the
too many
music,
switches. You have too many switches to flip when the show starts.
I just can't make the switch flipping happen. Anyway, welcome back to Batmosphere, everybody. Tonight we are doing episode 7. It is Jim Gordon. I'm surprised we're only in the 7th episode. I feel like we've been doing this for quite a while, but it's only a monthly show. I was kind of surprised when I saw that number. I was like, oh, it's only 7. But it's been an adventure though, Dan. I feel like we have done quite a few of these, but 7 feels like a low number.
I was going to say, it's like Star Wars. It's a saga, you know? It's an adventure saga. This is Batmosphere episode 7. And then settles
really
in, and then
out of it every time, and then constantly retcon ourselves and hope nobody notices and has a problem with it.
Yes, yeah. This every single episode we have had the ranking. Now we will start doing rankings between the characters for every single episode, as we've done in every episode. You can't tell us otherwise.
I like the idea that episodes 4, 5, and 6 of this show are really good, but 1, 2, and 3 are a little dicey, and then maybe this episode will be polarizing. Like, some people will really like this one, and some people won't. And then episode 8 will have somebody else come in and direct it.
There you go. Yeah, exactly. And it'll be like TNG, where it's like, oh yeah, you could skip the first couple and then just come in at the 3rd episode and not really miss much. Yeah, it's a whole thing.
That's what we're doing.
It's when they fired all the writers and it started to really gel. Yeah.
Tonight we're going to reveal our personal definitive Jim Gordons, and as I have had in a couple of episodes before, I have not 100% entirely decided what I'm going to say until we get there. I'm going to completely wing this. This one is really difficult for me. I
put some thought into it.
You are welcome back, man. I am indecisive, man.
Welcome back, man.
Indecisive, man. And then we are a little bit later going to review the classic Frank Miller Batman Year One of, if not arguably, the most important of Batman graphic novels. It's very, very important. Yeah, which one do you have?
I got that one.
He's got that one. Oh, yours is a little prettier than mine. Kind
of the matte cover.
And I don't have that crazy, absolute hardcover thing.
Oh, yeah, neither do I. I have a lot of the absolutes, but this is...
Every major important Batman story's gotta have one of those.
Got something like sauce or something on the back of this. Oh no, I gotta wipe it down.
Now you can never use it again.
Yeah, I'll never be able to resell it. It's just gonna have to go back into deep into the catalog.
Welcome, everybody in the comments. Thanks so much for being here live if you're doing that. And if you're watching after the fact, we appreciate that too as well. As always, Dan and I look forward to this every month, getting to talk to you guys about Batman stuff for an hour to however long we end up deciding to prattle on. We got Anime in the comments. We got Blue Dragon 5. Daniel Davis is here. Adam Howard is here. There's Rohit Dahar. Welcome to you. Mr. Robato's here. Good to see you guys. There's Tom. You guys are great. Appreciate you. Okay, so we start out, as always, Dan, with Bat Life, and I gotta be honest with you. Last month, I'm in the fake Batman place that Dan usually is in. I haven't done a lot of Batman stuff lately.
For once.
Well, I've been playing the Power Rangers miniatures game. That's been taking up a lot of my free time, and doing other channel stuff. And I haven't been reviewing a lot of Batman stuff recently. So really, the only thing lately that I've done besides reading Year One for this show, which is one of my favorite stories, and of course I've read this before, is I went back and watched Batman Forever again for the 6 billionth time after we lost Schumacher. Yeah, I felt the need to do that. So after we did the Schumacher tribute show that night, I watched that show, or that movie, as I was going to bed. I will confess that actually it was late enough I fell asleep while watching it, but I was watching it. So yeah. So that's my one Batman. I was watching Batman Forever.
True. Oh, dang, yeah. Yeah, that bummed me out. I haven't gone back to the Schumacher Batmans yet, or like any of his other catalog after hearing about his passing. I was pretty bummed about that because, I don't know, people kind of crap on him for Batman and Robin a lot, but I've always liked his phone booth, The Client, Time to Kill. Like he had a whole bunch of other movies, 8mm, that I probably shouldn't have been watching as a kid, that I watched as a kid.
Yeah, you've probably seen a lot of his catalog that I haven't. I kind of wish actually I'd had you on the tribute show, because you probably could have spoken a lot more to his movies than I could.
Yeah, his movies are all really pretty dark. I never saw The Lost Boys. I haven't seen like a lot of his kind of most iconic movies, like Lost Boys.
I actually have seen, yeah. And have you ever seen Flatliners? Because that's my favorite.
I saw the Flatliners remake.
Oh,
it was not. It was not good.
It's one of the worst things I've ever seen.
It was not good. And I haven't. I know the concept of the original, but I never had seen it.
Had no business being made, and not just because like why would you remake Flatliners, but because nobody there understood any better than I did why they were there.
Yeah, it was such a bland. That was just a movie that was so horribly middle of the road that it just had no need to exist.
Yeah, like it's an understatement to say that movie was that it was, what was the word I'm looking for? I don't know. That like there was no imagination whatsoever behind that movie.
Yeah,
uninspired. Why was that movie so uninspired?
It was directed like a music video. I think that was the thing. Is like it's like, oh, we can just make Flatliners again, but make it look cooler. I guess
there was a script that was maybe a little better before whatever they ended up being like compromised into, because originally and I don't think this was rumor. This was like on the IMDb page and stuff. Originally, it was supposed to be a sequel. That was going to be, it was supposed to be one of those like sequel remakes where it was kind of Flatliners again, but it was in the same universe. And the only reason I went and saw it was because Kiefer Sutherland was in it. And he was set, we thought, to reprise the original role. And then suddenly he's in as a cameo as this like German doctor guy with a really terrible accent. Like, I don't know what was going on there.
Well, he had said that they did film it where they called him by his character's name. But that was all cut out and, whatever, I guess shortened.
Was he supposed to like be pretending to do an accent or something? Like Daniel Davis says, or was that reshoots? Daniel Davis says, I sense executive meddling involved in the Flatliners remake. Yeah, I had the same thing with it.
Oh yeah,
something's going on.
Look, I'm no Flatliners aficionado. I just followed what was going on.
Yeah, it's funny how easy it is to get that moniker with things. Like if you mention that you like something enough, people assume that you know like everything about it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I've seen that movie 2 or 3 times, but like it's my favorite of Schumacher's movies. Like, yeah, I've seen Batman Forever probably 200 times, but I don't think it's as good as Flatliners. If I have to them, gun to my head, but it is a very, very different thing. But like you said, that's and of course I talked about this last week already, and we're gonna retread some ground that I did in the last couple of Captain Logan shows, because when we get to the news segment, I'm gonna want to let Danz weigh in on the other big news from last week regarding Batman with the potential for Keaton to come back. I've already said my piece about that in the Captain Logan show, but I want to make sure Danz gets to talk about it. But Schumacher, in making Batman Forever and then especially Batman and Robin, like the kinds of movies he were making there were really against type for him. Like very much not the kinds of things he was usually making. Like you said, his whole catalog is dark. Like everything but those, as far as I know. Like, nearly everything. But he was also, like I've said, like, kind of a workhorse director and was able to, he was very versatile. He was able to make different kinds of movies for different, tastes and scripts and, studios.
He seemed willing to accommodate any kind of input that, other parties had within his movies, to the point where, like, even it would horribly affect the direction and mood of a film that he's working on. But he was, like for the Batman movies, they just needed somebody who was not doing quite what they needed, something more sellable than what Tim Burton was doing.
Well, it's weird. I don't know why you would go to him if you didn't want something a little bit grittier and more street level. You think that would be why you would go to him? Like, he's actually the perfect choice after Batman Returns, and we'll talk about this later because this is gonna foreshadowing, Dan. This is going to actually be related to the topic I've got set for Bat Chat later, but. It seems like he's the perfect guy to go to after Batman Returns, because if you still want a darker, not campy Batman, but you want something light enough that's a little bit more accessible and that, like, and not just lighter, but also, like, makes sense and doesn't seem like random and all over the place and, like, a lot of style over substance, like Batman Returns was criticized for being, that's your guy. And then what they ended up wanting from him seemed to be something even a great deal more watered down than that.
Yeah.
And more ultra, commercial and like not straight up 60s Batman, but a little bit, I don't know, kiddier.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've listened to his commentaries. I can't remember when they were recorded, but he seemed to be very open and honest, about his entire experience in directing like Batman Forever and Batman and Robin. So they must have been recorded later.
Everybody says your audio is a lot louder than mine, so I have turned mine up, and hopefully, I'm trying to turn yours down a little bit. And you guys just help us out with levels, because I can't.
There you go.
I can't hear the balance on my side. But yeah, it's just the different kinds of mics we're using. I'm using more of an omnidirectional Yeti mic, and Dan's right up into.
Hello, how are you doing
a
today?
Condenser mic, and I should get a condenser for shows like this when I'm by myself. I usually use the Yeti because I often have somebody else with me, and it's just easier than miking multiple people. But yeah, anyway, you guys let me know if that got any better, or if I'm starting to clip at the tops real bad. Also,
clip at the tops. Clip at the tops. Hello, I'm Dan.
Yeah,
that is Cap. Test.
That's me. Anyway, so Dan, you done anything cool Batman related lately?
Warner Brothers, like what they had done with that Batmobile documentary, they've been streaming more documentaries recently.
Oh, I haven't watched any more of those yet. I noticed that, though.
They put out a Batman the Animated Series one that's really good. I don't know when it was done. It must have been done very recently,
I don't know if I've ever seen that one, or if that was the one that... Maybe they put that in with the big Blu-ray set they put out. I don't know.
Maybe,
I don't know where
because
that
it seems like it was made in the last couple of years.
Okay. I'll have to watch that.
It's really sharp, really great, and it's just
really
about
cool. They made that available.
Yeah. I love that they've been doing that. Here, I'll put it in the. I have the link, so I'll put it in the chat. But I think it's neat that they're doing that. They also had done, I think it was a Justice League documentary as well that they had put out. I haven't seen anything on that beyond a thumbnail and a title, so I haven't checked it out. But it's another like hour-long documentary. It seems neat that they've been doing that they've been releasing just free on YouTube content and doing a big stream with it. Like a premiere.
Yeah, I wish I had remembered that and gone and looked at it. Sorry, I just realized that. Sorry about all the audio issues. I just realized that your audio was actually doubled. So that's probably part of why
there had to be something. Yeah, there had to be something.
But I know last show everybody said that you were way too loud too. So that may have been. Yeah. You may have been doubled last show too. That may have been already after some changes I made in audio where that sometimes happens.
Welcome back, man, is always twice as loud. Anyway.
Freaking welcome back, man. That guy drives me crazy.
I'm glad they canceled his run.
They should have. Well, and it only got 8 issues out of the initial 12 that were.
Yeah. I think he would have been welcomed back a couple more times, being that his name. But yeah. Being that his name, I can talk
Welcome
English.
Batman's Welcome Batman. Welcome Batman's title gets rebooted every time a new issue comes out because it's always like Welcome Back. So it'll be like Welcome Back Man #1, and then a year and a half later, Welcome Back Man #1 comes out, and then 2 years later, Welcome Back Man #1 comes out.
Oh my god. That sounds like a headache. I can see why they canceled the run.
So it was 8 issues, but every one of them was a #1, and they were spaced out like 7 to 12 months each. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Anyway, so let's go ahead and go on to Bat News now. I didn't look up anything new for today because I figured that Dan's would want to talk about the Michael Keaton thing. And I also wanted to talk about a little bit, before we do that, about Denny O'Neil, because he passed away recently and like nobody is talking about that, or at least I haven't heard it come up much. And we should have done a show on it, to be honest with you, somewhere on the channel. There should have been honestly, there should have been a Captain Logan show, talking about that a little bit. But anyway, so I just wanted to mention, that it's really sad that happened, and I was reminded of it because, he writes the foreword for one of these, re-releases of Batman Year One, and I was like, oh yeah, that's right, we haven't talked about Denny O'Neil yet. O'Neill's one of my favorite Batman writers. He worked, of course, on really heavily during the 80s on Batman, and I think some in the late 70s also. And of course, he has been all over DC. And some people think of O'Neill as kind of hit or miss. He's real experimental. He tries different things that don't always end up working. He's got that kind of infamous run on Wonder Woman. But I've always liked his Batman work a whole lot. He wrote Venom, so he's the reason that Bane happens and has the venom tubes, and he wrote the novelization for Nightfall, which was one of the main ways that I experienced Nightfall. And I've always said that it's not as good as the No Man's Land one that Greg Rucka did, but I like a lot of things about it. I just don't know why he left Nightwing out. He shouldn't have left Nightwing out. And he was also one of the big aficionados of Batman. O'Neill knew that character better than about anybody.
Yeah. Well, dang, that sucks. Yeah, I wasn't. Again, I had heard the name and I had heard that he had passed. I just wasn't super aware of his contributions to Batman throughout his history.
Go back and watch documentaries on DVDs about Batman, and you'll see him in almost every one of them. He pops up constantly. Well,
yeah, I probably would recognize him had I seen him again in that context, because I've seen that stuff, and I actually had read part of that Nightfall novelization, so that's funny that you had mentioned that.
Interesting, yeah. And he's also really articulate and fun to listen to about Batman. Just really passionate about that character. Anime mentions that he co-created Ra's al Ghul. Yeah, that's right. And of course, he had a lot of important Marvel work as well. Daniel Davis mentions Hydra Man, who he created. Blue Dragon 5 mentions Ironmonger. Excuse me. Blue Dragon 5 says he got to meet him a couple times. That's cool. I never did see Denny O'Neil at a convention. I wish I had. But yeah, I always appreciated how kind of, concise and to the point and open he seemed to be about a lot of stuff. Like, he was sort of like Schumacher. He was really kind of critical of himself. He'd be real quick to be like, yeah, I tried that, it didn't work. And I always really appreciated that about him. And of course, he's got important stuff with Green Lantern and Green Arrow. And
gotcha. Yeah, that stinks. It always stinks when somebody's who's so tied to something and it's kind of
that's
put out
really
that
sad,
creative energy into the world.
I wish I had talked. Well, he says that the second time he met him, he had just lost Norm Brayfogle because they were working together on Batman, and yeah, that's really sad. I wish when I had talked to Brayfogle, I had asked him about Denny O'Neil. They both passed away now, unfortunately. Norm Brayfogle passed a few years ago. Was it 2 or 3 years ago, or even more than that? The years are starting to get away from me. It's been a little while now. I interviewed him in the early 2010s, so like 2010, 2011. I think 2011 is when I talked to Brayfogle. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I've talked about this on camera, but since it's Batmosphere, this would be a good place to mention it. But I have always that's kind of one of the big things that I'm a little bit upset with myself about, one of my regrets, I should say, is that I never talked more to Brayfogle. I don't even remember how it happened, but I maybe he was on Twitter. I got a hold of Norm Brayfogle and got him to come on to Comic Book Late Night, and we talked for like 2 hours that night. I mean, he was super cool, and he's like my Batman artist. He's my favorite. It was like a big deal. And Brayfogle always got the short end of the stick, man. Like, he never got an exclusive contract to DC. He's not remembered the way he should. Like, he co-created some major villains like the Ventriloquist. He was drawing on and right before Nightfall. I mean, he was involved in really important major Batman work, and he gave us like the big sprawling Batman cape that everybody remembers. And like, Brayfogle is, I think, a lot of people's close to favorite artist, and they don't even know it. I mean, like, he was really influential.
Oh, dang.
He just does not get the credit that he deserves. And I talked to him one night, and we did an interview. And then, we didn't really do much talk before the interview. So, like, we talked for maybe 4 or 5 minutes, just introducing myself and stuff. And then we got into the interview. And he was a super, like, introspective and kind of philosophical guy. Like, he didn't want to talk about Batman as much as he wanted to talk about, like, not politics, but just like kind of grander philosophical, ethereal ideas. Is really interesting. And he would talk about art and stuff. And of course, he was real over my head about stuff, but he seemed to enjoy talking to me too. And so after the interview, we start talking for 10 or 15 minutes, and he starts giving me like kind of juicy stuff about DC. And I was like, oh, well, if you were open to talking about certain things that we were talking about, I said, I kind of wish that that I had thought to bring it up in the interview. And he goes, well, do you want to re-record it? You want to do it again? And I was like, no, it's okay. We've got it. And he was like, I'll talk about whatever you want to, man. I mean, like he was real open and direct and forward, and it was in a good way, and it was cool. And then at the end of that, and we talked about everything under the sun. At the end of that conversation, he goes, I've really enjoyed talking to you, and like. He's gone now. Nobody else can like corroborate this, but I promise you, this is what happened. We get to the end of this conversation, and he gives me his office number. I think he was on a cell phone or something. I forget, but anyway, he gives me his office number, and he says, "Feel free to call me at my office anytime, just to chat, just to talk." And I said okay, and that felt really weird to me, and I never did, and I really regret that. I wish I had called him back. I could have maybe had like a little bit of an ongoing relationship with Norm Breyfogle, and that would have been really great. He was so much fun to talk to. But I felt weird about calling him out of the blue, and he was real old school. I didn't have a way to just like text him first, and so I was just like, do I want to just call this guy at his office? Like, and I regret it. I really wish that I had.
Yeah. Dang, that sucks.
Yeah, there's an option. Blue Dragon 5 mentions 10,000 Clowns. That was the reason I was talking to him, was because he was just then working on Batman Beyond. But even that was, like, they brought him back for that, and that was kind of a weird thing, I thought, to bring him back for Batman Beyond. Just doesn't have any capes. And he was only drawing like 8 pages at a time, because it was during that period that I was always complaining about, where we would have an issue that would have 3 stories in it. It would have or 3 parts of stories. So it'd have like 8 pages or 6 or 7 pages for Batman Beyond, and the other one was Superman Beyond, the other one was Justice League Beyond, and they were digital first things. And Breyfogle was only doing the Batman part. It's like 6, 7, 8 pages at a time was all you were getting. And I'm pretty sure that was the thing that he did for DC. If not, there may have been like a couple one-shots or something, but that was kind of the main thing.
Dang.
But yeah, anyway, I don't know. It's just somebody brought up Breyfogle, and it made me think of that. And I don't know if I've ever mentioned that before, but yeah, I wish I'd done that. I wish I'd called him.
Yeah.
Because it was really sad when he passed. And he had been sick for a while. And then, and even during that, I was like, oh, I wish I'd called him. Because like, now he's sick. I'm not going to call him now,
Yeah. There's an alternate reality happen.
That's a bummer.
Yeah.
And I wish I had gotten to meet Danny O'Neill. So I envy you, Blue Dragon 5. But yeah. Anyway. Well, other bad news. So how do you feel about the whole Keaton thing? I don't know how much you know about that, but.
Well, I always hate when I read Michael Keaton in talks to return as Batman, and then all the other news websites report it as Michael Keaton, Batman's back. It always kind of annoys me that that's the language they use around that stuff.
Well, to be fair, this time I didn't see much of that. It seemed like every outlet I looked at was all saying he's in talks. It may not happen.
Yeah, I don't know. I read a lot of headlines, but like I had already read the article, the Hollywood Reporter thing saying he was in talks. And then I scroll through all my other. I just always see the same headlines for different things, and most of them would said it like that specifically, and not the in talks. Some of them did say in talks, but there's still a lot of them that didn't say that.
To your point, though, that a lot of people are making the assumption that surely this will happen. And you can never be sure of anything in Hollywood. Like, the deal's got to be just right for a thing like this to come together. And that's a big commitment on Keaton's part. If he was being asked to just come in for one movie or just for a cameo or something, it would maybe be easier for me to swallow, yeah, that's probably going to happen. That's probably a done deal. What we're talking about here is like a multi-movie contract where he would be the thing that held a lot of this universe together moving forward. He's going to be the guy. We can't be sure that's happening, of course.
Yeah. So, I mean, as far as the idea of it, I'd be curious to see how that goes. I'm always down for it. I like that they're kind of leaning into a more kind of multiverse sort of thing with it. But Yeah, I don't know. It sounds good.
Are you sick of the multiverse thing yet? Or are you okay with DC jumping into that and using that as a way to kind of soft reboot DCEU so they can have their cake and eat it too, and kind of live with the stuff that they're stuck with, and or the stuff that people are liking, but get rid of the things that they're not? Like, is this a good idea, or should we
or just gone with Batfleck like he's already done? But
well, we don't know that for sure is the thing, because there's some rumors now that sound like they may be more than rumors that both he and Cavill are both back on the table potentially. It seems like, and I don't mean to repeat myself too much from the Captain Logan show last week, but just to catch Dan's up if you don't know about this, it seems like AT&T in taking over Warner Brothers, what they're really wanting to see, and it was their idea to do the Snyder Cut, they're wanting to see how well that performs on HBO Max. And if that does well, then they may be bringing us right back to the DCEU proper again. And if they do that, they're going to want to bring those guys back if they can get them to come back and, you know, give them the deal that would make them return. And both of them, again, there are rumors that they're both, and I think with Cavill it's even more than rumor, but that both of them might be more amiable than we thought they might be.
Yeah. With the news coming out recently, it definitely seems like Cavill's just like backing down to play Superman forever. Yeah. I don't know about Ben Affleck, like just from how he's spoken about playing Batman in the past, and like how it was just so hard for him, and was kind of one of the big aspects of him being driven to alcohol.
But if it's under different hands, and
maybe if it's a smoother ride.
So let me make this prediction. This is not a thing that I said last week. I meant to. If I just talking about him for a second, if Affleck came back and we heard for sure he was playing Batman again, I would almost bet you money we very shortly after that get another announcement about his directing something. I would think that would be the thing that would get him back, where finally he would be allowed to direct the movie in that universe. On the other hand, they are making something connected to the movie that he was supposed to be writing and directing, and I would think that would hurt his feelings a little bit, you know? Like when the Matt Reeves movie comes out and he has nothing to do with it, you'd think that might hurt his feelings a little bit. So, I don't know.
Yeah. And it was the title of his Batman movie. Because the Batman was from when Affleck was working on it. And, I don't know. I feel like there's a little bit too much tied up in stuff with the Affleck side of it. But I mean, who knows what the future holds?
I'm just not going to be surprised by anything at this point. You know,
yeah, that's the thing. Is like,
surely he won't come back because he's too burnt out and stuff. But I'm also hearing that from various sources that can't be verified. So who knows that like maybe he's in a different place in his life now again, and now that those movies are performing. The DC movies, maybe he's more interested in coming back and attempting it again. I don't know. I mean, I could see that going either way. I really could.
Yeah. Just like kind of like you were saying before. Like, just there's not so much surprising. Like there, as far as announcements, like there's not that much like that actually surprises me anymore. I hear about Keaton coming back, and I'm like, oh yeah, sure. I mean, it's and people have been wanting that for a while, and that's kind of been a talk of for the last couple of years. Like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if he came back and they did like a Batman Beyond sort of deal, but with Keaton,
which is also apparently maybe on the table at the same time.
Yeah,
have you heard about this?
I mean, I'd be down for that.
It's just wild. Like there's this idea floating around. Again, I can't be sure that it's true that HBO Max. This is like a unverified insider source thing that HBO Max may be wanting to do a Batman Beyond series. Or maybe they would make it a movie. Either way, where Keaton would be playing old man Bruce Wayne, and it would be unrelated to also being 89 Batman ? I don't know. I just anything's and after the announcement of the Snyder Cut, Dan's, I just feel like 2 weeks ago, or a month ago, if we'd heard this, I think I would have been more blown away than I was after the Snyder Cut is happening. It's like, oh, okay, so HBO and AT&T are crazy, and they're gonna try all kinds of crazy stuff. Like, I wonder if there's not just this sort of like fantasy wish fulfillment thing going on with AT&T, where maybe some of the rumors swirling around Affleck are, well, they're going to throw everything they can at him to get him to come back. Because if they are thinking keep DCEU and keep Snyder's vision, which it does seem like they're doing, I mean, like, who knows what that's going to be like when the Snyder Cut actually comes out, and what the reaction from fans is going to be, and if people are going to see that as a curiosity versus like a legitimate thing they'd want to see us going back and adding to. But like, especially if they brought Snyder back, and I don't think that's crazy at this point, they're going to want Affleck. So they will do anything they can to get him back, I would think.
Yeah. Oh, man. Who knows what the DC their whole trajectory this entire time has been so erratic and all over the place and very overreactionary and throw caution to the wind sometimes. And it's just like, it's like a monkey got a hold of a cop car and was just like driving around town.
But now it's even weirder because you've got new executives getting their hands in a pie that has already been all like messy and gross, but they weren't there for when it got messy and gross. So they're like, well, this might taste okay. And then like they're taking bites of it and hoping that maybe like a couple of years after it went sour and stale, it'll taste okay.
Can our monkey in the cop car metaphor also blend into this pie metaphor?
I think it absolutely can. Sure, I don't think monkeys care how long the pie has been on the table. Yeah, no, I think they're fine with it.
Chimpanzees going to the diner to get some pie.
Yeah, I think they probably
get their fingers in that pie.
Probably, yeah, probably so.
I like it. I would like a HBO Max series on this chimpanzee stealing cars and driving and getting pies.
Well, keep the horror. How would you feel if there was a live-action intro, the Batverse movie that has Keaton, Kilmer, Clooney, Bale, Affleck, and Pattinson all playing their respective Batman and crossing over? Well, like we said that nothing would surprise us. Most of those people coming back actually would surprise me. Most of them either can't or wouldn't. I don't see Clooney having any interest in that whatsoever. He didn't like the idea of Batman. He, as well as most of the people involved in that movie, weren't real happy with what they made, it doesn't seem like. Kilmer can't really do much right now, it sounds like. He had a surgery that left him with a really raspy voice. He's not even able to act right now, I don't think. And then I don't think you could give Bale enough money to come back. So at that point, you're just stuck with Affleck if he's willing to come back, and Pattinson. And eventually, if they're doing a big giant crossover DC multiverse thing, I think absolutely Pattinson potentially crossing in and then bringing in also the Joker from the Joker movie. I think all of that is potentially plausible. Anybody but Keaton that has played Batman before, I do not see any of them returning ever.
What about Joseph Gordon-Levitt?
I don't even know what he's doing anymore. When was the last time you heard anything from Joseph Gordon-Levitt?
Oh, he's always around. But I mean, he was Batman. He was Batman at the end of that one.
I guess that's possible if you just had to cross into the Nolanverse, but that's the only possible way Nolanverse gets crossed into with a Batman. Now, bringing back that version of Catwoman or something, that's also potentially plausible if they wanted to go to the Nolanverse and go so full tilt into multiverse that they got to bring in as many different universes as possible. But the notion that you're talking about is pipe dream territory, even in a world where it seems like anything is possible. There are a couple things in that list that are physically impossible.
Halle Berry Catwoman.
I've heard other people joke about that too. Yeah.
I'm trying to think.
Anime says I think Bale would come back. And other people are saying that too. I feel like I read an interview. Maybe this was long enough ago now that it would be different now. But I mean, like, it seemed like he had no interest in ever coming back. But who knows? So maybe that is possible. I still don't think that would happen. I don't think that would happen. Yeah. But any of those other guys, I would be very surprised to see come back. And Clooney would be the thing that would blow my mind. If Clooney came back, I'd be like, what?
Yeah, yeah. I think he'd do it though. I think he would. He likes a good joke. So I think if they made a proper joke about it, like some serious moments happening, and this goofy Batman credit card holding dude comes in and is like, I don't know.
He comes back and he's like campy Batman. He's like straight up campy Batman.
Yeah.
It's like, well, we don't have Adam West anymore, and this is the closest thing we have to Adam West. So he's super campy Batman. He comes in. His first line is, "Hi, Batman. I'm Batman."
Hello, Batman. I'm Batman. Yeah. Ocean's 11 Batman. I don't know. I think he'd be down for it, but I am not the man though. So Ian Glenn is on Teen Titans or Titans. He's Batman on there. Guy from Game of Thrones.
I don't even know who that is. Oh, okay. I don't know what that has to do with what we're talking about.
Oh, he's Batman on Titans. He's
a live
Jason
action
Ritter
Batman.
In the chat.
Oh,
yeah, he is a Batman.
Okay, well, I meant big screen live action Batmans though. Like, I just don't see anybody that's ever been on the big screen playing Batman coming back to play Batman at this point. But yeah, I mean, like sure, I'm sure it wouldn't be that hard to get like the kid that played Bruce Wayne in Gotham to come in and do a big screen Batman. What's he doing now? Well, no, Anime, I agree with you. Clooney could not replace Adam West as Campy Batman, but that would be the only way it would make any sense to use him, because he's Campy Batman. I also feel, I'm with you, it would feel like blasphemy to me to put him in an Adam West suit. You would want him in the Batman and Robin suit, probably. You want him in something more ridiculous than the Batman and Robin suit. You know how he had like an ice suit in that? He should have like a heat suit. They should go against
like that
Firefly
universe
or
just
something.
kept going and kept getting wackier and wackier, so they had even crazier Batmobile and even crazier suits as time went on. Like,
yeah, he's in such an action figure suit that he can't even walk in it. Like, it's weighing him down so much, he just can't even hardly move. He's got like this big giant jetpack that's got like a Swiss Army knife on the back of it.
And Robin has to push a button on his back to do it, like to arm it. Yes, I'm down. David Mazouz.
Well, sure, but Will Arnett's doing a voiceover performance with Batman. Like, if he showed up and put on a bat suit,
Will Arnett.
Some of us would be like, "Oh, that's clever," and a lot of people would just be like, "Oh, it's Will Arnett. What's he doing in a bat suit?"
Yeah, he would look kind of awkward in a Batman suit. Not that he's tall. He's got a square enough jaw. But he's great as Lego Batman. I love him as Lego Batman.
I do too. I do too. But anyway, so is there anything else about that whole thing that you want to talk about? Because, I mean, there's a lot there, and I unpacked it real hard last week. But, I mean, do you want to talk about just the Flashpoint of it all? And, like, I don't know how you even feel about the guy playing Flash, because a lot of people, the immediate reaction was, well, Keaton could be cool, but I still don't want to see that movie with that guy as the Flash.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I liked him until I saw that video of him like tripping that girl and being a jerk. But I have no idea. They've been tinkering for that, like, on that movie for so long. Yeah. Like, it seemed like when they were going into like Justice League and all that stuff, or right after Batman v Superman, like the talk was all like it was going to be Flashpoint, and at first they were talking like, oh, it's Jason Momoa is going to be a big part of it, or Gal Gadot is going to be a big part of it. Like, they seemed to try to staple something onto it to try to make sure it would be successful. And they just never could lock onto anything, and it was just went round and round.
So there's two things. Sorry, go ahead. Good.
Oh no, I was about to say it was like with Joss Whedon, where he was attached to a Batgirl movie for a year, and then left the project because he didn't have any ideas. That's what that was the excuse that he had. I'm like, you were. I've
never bought into that. Yeah, I think that was
probably of course he had ideas.
I'm sure that was like a creative clash issue, and they weren't happy with something he pitched or something, or at least that would be my guess. Like, he doesn't have ideas for Batgirl, please. He turned in a Wonder Woman script a decade before that, and he was all on deck to make that movie, and then they didn't like his script, so they fired him, and then they brought him back. Now, certainly, I'm sure a lot of the executives were different. Then, when DCEU is in full swing, they bring him in to do Batgirl, and they're kind of desperate for talent that that will draw people to the theater because people are already feeling funky about Man of Steel and then BVS, and they bring him in for Batgirl, and I can't remember if he was attached to that before or after BVS, but I think it was after that movie came out. I could be wrong. And then he is in-house and supposed to be making that movie, and then they go, "Oh, hey, would you fix Justice League for us? We don't think anybody's gonna like the Snyder version of this movie," and he couldn't finish making it. So come finish it for him, but also reshoot like 90% of it or whatever it ends up being. Everybody's debated about the percentages. I don't want to get into that, but just whatever it ends up being. And then after that happens, now he's not working on Batgirl. Obviously something happened. It's either, I would imagine, a creative clash thing or his not wanting to be part of that circus anymore, where like he helps them fix Justice League and then he goes, I don't want to work with these people. And saying he didn't have any ideas was maybe his way of throwing himself under the bus instead of saying anything mean about them so he didn't burn any bridges. I don't know. We're not there. I mean, like you always have to. You wish you were a fly on the wall, right? You're always looking through tainted glass at this, or more than tainted glass behind a brick wall. And you know, we get very little, of a gleam into what exactly is really happening behind closed doors with this stuff. So all we can do is speculate based on the tiny morsels of knowledge that we have.
Yeah, and it seems like James Gunn's Suicide Squad movie, The Suicide Squad, just shot through like nothing. Like it just went through real quick. Their processes seem to be all over the place of how. Well,
you also have to keep in mind that we keep having different people in charge at the top. You know, I mean,
yeah, that's true. There's been no direction for the ship.
Yeah,
it's been all over the place. It's one of the reasons why Justice League was such a mishap, was because it was rushed through to get made before the merger went through, and like some producers were protecting their bonuses by like adhering to this schedule. Like, yeah, they have this wonky CGI covering up a mustache situation, which could probably use a little bit more time to fix, but no, it needs to be out immediately so we can get in on time. It's
I never fully understand that, where it's like, I get that like there's coordination and there's a lot of, different like companies that have endorsed this thing and have like products with the name of it on them and stuff, but I would think that it would be worth sacrificing some of that if you had to give it another 2 or 3 months to come out better and not go down in history as one of the worst things ever. I don't know. But again, I'm sure you could put me in a room with some executives that could explain it to me, and I would walk out and go, okay, I see why that had to be out on this date and no later. You know what I mean? Like, so something you said earlier about the Flash movie, you said that there has always been like some kind of extra gimmick that they've kind of tacked onto it to get people interested in it. And namely things that people have actually liked from DC so far. The thing and post when we thought the DCEU was dead, now maybe it won't be. The big thing to keep in mind, though, is that one of the first pitches after the first couple of directors came and went, maybe after the first 25 directors came and went, you had, I'm only sort of kidding. I said last week, I think 25,000 directors, and I'm still holding to that number. 25,000 directors have come and gone with this project. So Flashpoint was one of the earlier things that we heard about, and it had been 3 years, and I don't remember 2 or 3 years, and I don't remember anybody mentioning Flashpoint until just recently again, which means either, and I'm going to amend something I said on the Captain Logan show last week, either that has been the plan all along, and they've just been not continuing to make a public deal out of that, or because I thought that was out the window already. Or it was an idea that has been brought back, like resurrected from the grave since AT&T took over, and they seem to want the DCEU to keep going. Because they seem to really trust the Snyder Cut for some reason and think that that's going to be their golden ticket with DC. And also for HBO Max. They seem to think that that's going to be their Mandalorian. So it's possible that they resurrected it from the grave. Now, I did say last week, too, that it's possible that that one of the pieces of evidence that perhaps it has always been the plan is that they had Ezra Miller. I couldn't remember his name again until just now. That they had Ezra Miller in the in the big CW event this year with Crisis, and there was kind of rumors floating around that there was a reason for that, and that was actually mandated from the movie side, not the TV side. They wanted that in there. That could have been them setting this up, all along. But so the two things that make me think that this is more likely to stick than anything else we've heard, that it is more plausible that the Keaton thing happens if he wants to do it, and that Flashpoint really is what they'll end up doing, is that A, there has been some idea about the Flash movie being a Flashpoint and being a soft reboot for them going back 2 or 3 years. I think 3 years. But the second thing is, the director for that movie now is the guy who directed it, and he's like an in-house Warner Brothers guy, and he's given them a couple of really successful movies, and they clearly seem to be playing well together. So if they could get him to direct that movie, I think he's a lot less likely to leave than a lot of their other directors. So those two things combined make me think that this is, if they can get Keaton on board, actually kind of likely to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, Muschietti, the director, he's kind of from the Shazam director school of filmmaking, where they were making horror movies for Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
And I think what was it? Walter Hamada, I think was the guy's name, the former head of he was the head of the DC stuff for a little bit. Then he had some stuff, and then he was gone, and then one of the many regime changes. But Walter Hamada was the guy who brought in, gosh, I'm trying to remember. Adam, I can't remember the guy's name. The director of Shazam, he had directed like Annabelle, the second Annabelle movie, and some other horror movies. And he was like a short films director. So seemed to be a couple people from the horror section doing that stuff for. And plus, Andy Muschietti, he's a little bit of an effects director too, because his horror movies have a lot of effects. He had done Mama, and then the newer It movies, which have not a super amount of the second one has a lot of CGI. Has a lot.
Yeah. Well, and even that ending with the first one in that third act, there is quite a bit. Yeah, with all the floating.
Yeah, he's
stuff,
pretty good with it generally.
No, you're right. That is actually a really good proving ground for action movie or superhero directors.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I can't remember the guy's name. David F. Sandberg. Thank you, Daniel Davis. David F. Sandberg. He's like, a writer, director, editor. So he's very hands-on with his movies, and I think with like Shazam, you can kind of see a little bit of that touch to it as well, because he even has on his YouTube channel like breakdowns of how he directed some of the scenes, and like Warner Brothers let him have access to B-roll, so he just cut it together for a YouTube video. So. Yeah, it's really neat seeing kind of talent from that side of it come around, as opposed to like somebody like they were talking originally like Robert Zemeckis and a million other directors, like you said. So
I hate to say it, but Zemeckis is just kind of past his prime. Like, I don't know how you can do with a thing like that.
Yeah.
I mean, what was the last really good movie Zemeckis made? I mean, I feel bad for saying that. I love him, but
Flight was good. Flight was pretty good. That was solid. But that was the last one.
This kind of thing, though. That's a much smaller kind of thing. Yeah. Like, I don't know if like the kinds of movies that would lead you to pick Zemeckis for this are things that he made 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's been a while.
But but I really like what you said about those horror directors, making special effects movies, and then that being kind of a stepping stone for this kind of thing. Some of those horror sensibilities also are really right for some of these projects. Flashpoint, it makes perfect sense for somebody like the It director to make. And it's supposed to be pretty loosely based on Flashpoint, but if you took any of the darker imagery from that book, like Flashpoint has a scene where Barry Allen in the new altered Flashpoint reality, in trying to go back in time, he has to try to get his Flash powers back, and he has to intentionally get himself electrocuted by lightning to try to recreate the accident that made him the Flash in the first place. And spoilers for Flashpoint, but the end of that issue, the last page of that, is a revelation that it didn't work, and he gets completely fried. He's basically burned alive. And that guy is perfect for a scene like that. Like if we, and obviously all the Thomas Wayne stuff, if we were to have Thomas Wayne in that movie. Now, I can't remember if it was in the Variety article or where I read it, but it has been sounding like that is not on the table, that if they do Michael Keaton, they're not also doing Thomas Wayne, which is unfortunate. I don't know why you would want to do Flashpoint if you weren't doing Thomas Wayne. That's the big memorable thing that everybody takes from that. Everybody loves that suit. Everybody loves that idea. Everybody loves, or at least a lot of people, not everybody, a lot of people love the Martha Wayne Joker. Wouldn't it be crazy to have Martha Wayne Joker in the DCEU universe?
Oh, yeah.
After the
resurrect that Martha joke.
Her name is Martha, and it's like, yeah, and she's gonna murder us all.
Yeah. It always seemed like now I'm blanking on his name. I was just thinking about him. The Negan guy. Henry
No, Jeffrey D. Morgan. But
Jeffrey Dean Morgan.
And everybody's talking about that. He's apparently not supposed to be in that. Like, the character is apparently not supposed to be in that movie. So, because at first a lot of people's reaction was, well, that sucks. Why would you get Michael Keaton to play that part instead of Jeffrey D. Morgan? It's like, that's not the part. He's going to be 89 Batman. Yeah, and I think some people are still a little bit confused about that. That it's not him coming in to play just an older Batman. It's specifically multiversal, like an older version of the 89 Batman. It's bringing in that universe and having him apparently dimension hopping.
That'd be crazy. That'd be absolutely insane.
Yeah, and
I think it'd be cool.
I want to be excited about it, and I have to, have kind of a hopeful but skeptical eye about it, because I don't trust these people to do that with my childhood, and I'm really and I don't. When I say that, I don't mean to be the you ruined my childhood. If this sucks, I've still got 89. That's not what I mean. I'm just saying what makes me excited about that is getting to see Keaton come back and play that part, and maybe be. And improve on it, maybe be a little bit more of a, three-dimensional character with a little bit more depth. And, where has he been for these 30 years? And is he, or however long they decide it's been, and is he maybe going to be, somehow more relatable? But isn't that also wild that, we start BVS with, this is assuming any of this happens, we start BVS introducing a Batman to that universe that is inspired and loosely based on the Dark Knight Returns version, which is an older Batman that is in a lived-in universe that's been doing this a long time, and in that book anyway, finally coming back for the first time in a long time. That's not what they did in BVS, but he was still a middle-aged, had been doing this for a long time Batman, and you're gonna do. If this happens, a Michael Keaton 89 Batman, that would actually be a lot more like that. He's older, he would actually be something closer to an elderly Batman.
Yeah.
Again, I don't think Michael Keaton looks like an elderly man, but he's an older guy. He's going to be in his 60s Batman. And I just think that's crazy. And I also think it's ironic because 89 itself was inspired very heavily by Dark Knight Returns. Some of the stuff that initially was in Sam Hamm's script that was based on that did not, kind of went on the cutting room floor, but some of it is still kind of intact. The biggest thing was there was supposed to be a scene where he's riding a horse, and they ended up nixing that. But there is, it's just some of the flavor of that and stuff is there. More of it ultimately ends up being inspired by this, but then we will talk later about how this is in everything. So, yeah.
Yes.
James asks if Keaton is still going to be the Vulture. Well, we know that he is in the trailer for Morbius, so apparently, and I mean, who knows if he'll be in another Spider-Man movie, but apparently he's
all the
doing
Birdmen.
Something in that. All the Birdmen. David, that's a good point. Keaton is 68. He'd be actually 70 when any of this got shot. And isn't that crazy? He doesn't look like a 70-year-old man.
Well, they're
Nobody. like he's a rough and tumble looking guy, but I don't think anybody's aged as well as Michael Keaton. Like, I don't know, he's the definition of like distinguished with age.
Harrison Ford's starting to melt, but
he's even older than that though.
Yeah, he's gonna be like something like 80 by the time they get around to filming this last Indiana Jones movie. But yeah, no, you're absolutely right. He has aged very well. He's just gotten wrinkly.
Yeah, Blue Dragon 5 says he perpetually looks 50. It's interesting because over the years he's like kind of dramatically started looking different. It's not the Patrick Stewart thing where like only in the last few years has Patrick Stewart finally started like seeming elderly to me. It was like he got old like when he was 42. Patrick Stewart did, and then just stayed that age forever until recently. Yes. And then and even still, like, it does not look bad for a almost 80-year-old man. And then you get to Michael Keaton, where it's like he's just had different stages. I don't even know if I could peg his age if I'd never seen him before. If I went up to Michael Keaton right now, I'd be like, I don't know, 50-something, 60-something, I don't know.
Yeah. How old is Kevin Conroy? When I had seen him at
Conroy's got to be 60, right?
Yeah, when I met him at Denver Comic-Con, I was like, man, he's so wrinkly. It's like something to behold in real life. He is a textured man.
Yeah, he looks like he's been through some life.
Yeah, but he has such a presence about him.
He was
so like, hello.
He was so nice when I met him. He's 64.
Dang. Yeah,
Kevin Conroy can almost get Medicare. Well, let's start talking about how Batman get old, and because yes, this happens to people. People get old. Blue Dragon 5 says 58 or 60. Nope, I looked it up. It is 64. Anyway, so now we're going to go on to definitive versions, and you guys in the comments there live, feel free, and after the fact too, in the comments, feel free to tell us what your favorite iteration of Jim Gordon is. This also always gets a little bit tricky because we can talk about, like, sometimes you kind of want to separate this and talk about, like, the best on-screen version versus the best comic book version. What I always like to do is just throw out, like, definitively, this is the version overall that I think of when I think of this character. But we can also kind of break it down between comics and adaptation as well. I think it would be fun at first to throw out a couple of examples of things that would not count as your definitive Jim Gordon, because there are some other characters that we've talked about so far where it's so difficult to choose because they're all great. Now, this one's difficult to choose because a lot of them I like, but, like, who did we do last time where this was, I'm forgetting. Well, last time was the Batmobile, but the time before that we did, I feel like we did somebody that was just hard to pick because they were all really good. Or something. Well, I can't remember now. But like
Clayface, we had Clayface.
We talked about how Alfred. There was really no bad Alfred. Like, that was not as hard to pick the best as some of these have been. But there are, or definitive for each of us personally. But there's not really a bad one. There are some not good Jim Gordons, and the first one I want to throw out is. And later on, it's a little better, but especially Arkham Asylum and Arkham City, not good Gordons.
I was that was the first thing that came to my mind too, was Arkham. The Arkham games do not handle Gordon well. I mean, he's just a device in the first game.
That's all he is, yeah.
And he's hardly in the second game. He's hardly poorly characterized. Like, he's just like, Batman.
he's just so like cartoonily grizzled.
Yeah, he's like super beefy. So he's like huge and like thick.
Thug Gordon.
Yeah, and they not care. He's just a blob. His character is just like an amorphous.
They reinvented or tweaked a lot of characters in those games, and that felt like they hired the voice actor, and then they went, well, we got to make him look like that actor. Or make him sound like that actor. Look like that voice actor. What he's doing with the voice, like, I don't know why you cast that. And then in Arkham Knight, I think Arkham Knight is where it goes to Mike Ehrmantraut, is it not?
Yeah, Jonathan Banks. And he is great as Gordon.
Good choice, but it felt weird because suddenly he feels like a real character retroactively, and it's like, you're not the same guy. Who are you?
I'm grizzled now, Batman. They got my daughter.
I need you to put $1 million in a bank account.
My daughter's Batgirl. Spits out coffee. I'm gotta get her back, Batman.
Murder you, Batman. We got a couple super chats real quick from Mr. Roboto. Is Gordon from Gotham on your list, Captain Danz? No, he's not on mine. I like that actor. I think he was a good choice for young Gordon at first. He turns into a soap opera character very quickly.
I mean, he was from the OC.
Let's not forget that he's a friggin' murderer. They like to sweep that under the rug in that show.
Oh, God. Yeah, I fell off on that show so long ago. So, no comment. And Mr. Roboto said we need a return of Chief O'Hara. Chief O'Hara. Yes, I agree.
We need if we bring back Chief O'Hara, though, we need to do one of two things with him. He either has to continue to be completely incompetent, or he has to be the most competent person that has ever been on the Gotham Police Force.
Either or, one extreme or the other.
Nothing in between. It can't be anything in between.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Oh man, now I want to see that. I want to see like super like Sherlock Holmesy Chief O'Hara.
Yeah,
in one of these Batman movies,
where you bring him in like in place of Harvey Bullock or something, and he's you know, he's as good as Bullock, but maybe even better.
I absolutely like this. He's like in competition, like with Gordon.
Yeah, exactly.
Why haven't they done this yet?
And then if he's still super incompetent, Batman has to hate him, because that's my favorite thing about 60s Batman is that there's this unspoken constant thing of Batman clearly hates Chief O'Hara, like with a burning passion, to the point, it's so funny, to the point where it even, like, he's constantly condescending to Chief O'Hara, like he's trying to not look like, you know, arrogant and like eye-rolling, but he totally is. He just freaking hates Chief O'Hara. And then to the point where they even inserted that in that first animated movie they made, and I was like, Return of the King of Crusaders, like, see, I wasn't wrong. Like, it's like an unspoken constant joke with the, and I never noticed it, and I never heard anybody talk about it until I did the Rewind, where I did a big research project on that show, and binging it, I realized, oh my God, this is the best thing about the show, is that he hates Chief O'Hara. So
I never got that.
You'd want to keep that trope. Maybe even if he was great. Maybe if he's great, Batman hates him because he's better at it than Batman is. Maybe that's why. That's how you would. He hates Chief O'Hara.
Oh gosh,
David, I'm surprised they haven't brought Chief O'Hara into Harley Quinn, to be perfectly honest with you. It seems like that would be a thing that they would have done already. Can you imagine Chief O'Hara during the No Man's Land period in that show? Like, he takes over the police department after Gordon gets thrown out. Although that wouldn't really make sense with what they were doing, because the people that threw him out are horrifying. But I don't mean to spoil too much from that show. But and I'm not done with the second season either. But it's nuts. Yeah, they're basically pseudo loosely adapting No Man's Land in the second season. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I love that show. Yeah, I haven't even started the second season yet. It's been on the list. So many other things. It
just gets better. It just keeps getting better. What they do with the Riddler is fantastic. But yeah, I love it. It's really good. But yeah, so let's get into any other not so good Gordons we should mention real quick.
Pat Hinkle or Hinkle?
We do have to Hingle. Yeah, we have to talk about that.
Even in the Burton movies, he really doesn't get too much to do. I want to say Batman Returns, he's probably, well, he gets a good chunk in the first one as well, but like, I don't know. I always just like watch those movies growing up, and I was like, Commissioner Gordon doesn't even like register on any character that I am even paying attention to in those movies. So it's like, it's hard to, I mean, he's fine as the character, whatever that character is. He's kind of bumbling. He's kind of like aloof to everything. He in the first two, he seems somewhat serious. You know, he's going in with the raid at Ace Chemicals.
Yeah, he's proactive. He's fighting corruption. He clearly is like not part of that corruption, and not the reason that the police department has gone so south. Like, it seems like he's fighting an uphill battle, and he can't stop guys like what's his face, not Flash, but that cop that in '89 that's like Flash. I don't know why I can't remember his name now. I'll think of it.
Yeah.
But you know who I'm talking about.
Yes, I know.
Obviously, you and I have read the entire movie together. Of course, you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, for some reason I can't remember for some reason.
But
yeah.
Eckhart, there you go. Thanks, Blue Dragon.
Oh,
I just right off I couldn't think of yeah. And why don't you broadcast it? But Eckhart is a guy that Gordon can't keep from doing all the horrible, corrupt things he's doing and being in league with Jack Palance and all of that. And so you have to sympathize him a little bit for that. But the problem is, and that third act's got myriad issues, but when you get to the end of that movie, he basically just throws his hands in the air and decides he's going to call a vigilante to do all of his work for him every time there's a problem. It's like, oh, you gave us the signal. He's just going to turn on this. Like, Batman drops a essentially mob boss, but wearing clown makeup, to his doom. And then he's like, oh, that's who we should call every time. And that just makes you look really incompetent. And like it seems like you were on the side of good trying to do the right thing. And then now you're settling for hire a murderer from your perspective, right?
Well, they built Superman a statue in Batman v Superman. So, I mean, look,
yeah,
they'll do that. These people don't have any sort of rationale or foresight or anything. They'll just go for it. And then after that,
when you get to Batman Returns and Batman Forever, it feels like you've got that same culture of dependency that you have in 60s Batman, where if he wasn't incompetent before, he's gotten lazy and decided that, I don't even really
yeah, he's like, I got Batman!
Run my department anymore. He just stands around and waits for Batman to show up. And then, like, my favorite Hingle thing, it cracks me up so much, is when you get to the third act of Batman Forever, and he sees the Batplane, and he just goes, go! I'm just gonna stand right here. And then I also love, he's not even trying to do any detective work. In a world where Batman's not really much of a detective, you've got him going, he reads a suicide note and he goes, yep, definitely suicide.
Detective Porkins.
He was clearly chosen because, and I don't know why you do this, and I've said this before, but because he looks like the Gordon from the 60s show. And it's weird because, or at least his build is that way, right? Like he's a little heavyset, like he looks kind of like that guy. And I like that Gordon a lot for that show, but they're trying to do everything they can to get away from that, and they're looking a ton at Miller. Why on earth would you not try to find a Jim Gordon lookalike? Like, and to be fair, they're not going for straight off the page with a lot of things. Like, they're obviously their Dent doesn't look like comic book Dent. They went for a different looking character with that. But I don't know. They made a Joker that looks like the Joker, I guess. There's not a whole lot of characters that they're even bringing from. But okay, they didn't go like crazy with Alfred. I don't know why they wouldn't have tried to pick somebody that looked like, especially when this is earlier in Batman's career. Why'd you make a Gordon that old, too?
Yeah.
That's another question.
Maybe it was just supposed to be like he's the stereotypical cop sort of deal, because it's supposed to be, it's very noirish, and it's what a lot of what Burton's drawing from. Maybe it's that kind of like.
That's a great point. Yeah, that's you're right. That's the stereotype, and I am forgetting that Tim Burton is not trying to make a comic book Batman movie. The script is, but Tim Burton is trying to make a Tim Burton Batman movie, and there is a distinction to be made there. And you're right. The influences that he is looking at would lead him to a different, like, stereotypical police chief. Of course, you're absolutely right about that.
Yeah, they're all wearing the long trench coats, and they all look like they're detectives.
Which means David says Bob was pretty accurate. I don't think Bob was in the comics, and that was an invention for that movie.
Bob is Bob, and nobody can take that away from him.
Maybe he shows up somewhere after that, but I'm pretty sure that they made him up for that movie. It's also possible that you were joking. Blue Dragon 5 says, Cap, they were trying to go for the take where Gordon was there after Bruce's parents were killed, but it got lost in the filmmaking. It's what drew Hingle to the role, apparently. Yeah, I had heard that too, and I don't even think that's in Sam Hamm's original script that he was there in the first place, but it might be. It's been a long time since I read that. Having said that, he still looks older than he would have to, because you did the exact same thing with Gordon in Begins and Dark Knight, and and he's I mean, that looks like a 65-year-old Jim Gordon in '89.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, he looks pretty old. I mean,
now, the idea
as
was
a kid,
he was the commissioner the entire time.
Yes, that's true. Yeah.
And to be fair, that was a relatively newer idea in '89, because we'll talk about this later, but in year one, which becomes the, canonical definitive origin for Batman, Batman and Jim Gordon, even though there is probably an age difference between them, they both come to Gotham at the same time. So Gordon would not have been there when his parents got killed. He wouldn't have even been part of it. He'd never been to Gotham. He didn't know anything about it.
Yeah. Pat Hingle was 65 in 1989.
Oh, man, I nailed it. I nailed it!
Yeah, okay, mid-60s.
So a lot of preamble to get to our definitive Gordon, but this is a character I felt like we should talk about some not as good Gordons or just odd choices for Gordon. What is your definitive? Just imagine the drum roll. What is your, if you had to choose one, definitive, and you do, definitive Jim Gordon?
Yeah, okay. Gun to my head.
Gun to your head.
I would have to say, just as far as like the version that reflects all other representations of Jim Gordon for me, I would have to say the animated series Jim Gordon. He is just that voice, Bob Hastings. Like, he just commands that. Like, he has so much respect for Batman. That's why I like the mutual respect aspect of Batman. Like, this is a Jim Gordon who couldn't do it without Batman, and Batman couldn't do it without Jim Gordon. Like, these two have that relationship.
And he doesn't have that confidence problem. I mean, you buy, just like you do in year one, that this is an area that the police department's not going to be able to, solve all of that corruption on their own. And that also they have problems within their own force, which animated series isn't all about, but there clearly is some of that going on. I mean, like, their Harvey Bullock is not completely above board at the beginning in that, if memory serves. I think he has issues with being kind of on the take and stuff, doesn't he, at first?
Yeah, or he's definitely jerkish. I don't know about being on the take, but he's definitely a jerk, and he's portrayed as a jerk very much most of the time.
Yeah.
I just like that it's like established Batman, like the firm-footed Batman with firm-footed Commissioner Gordon. Like, it's really great. Like, I was so like that was the relationship between Commissioner Gordon and Batman for me, like up until when Batman Begins came out, and I was like almost kind of confused and like seeing I really hadn't seen too much like of anything where Gordon wasn't already Commissioner.
Sure.
So him being like Lieutenant Gordon was like, it threw it off for me. I was like, oh, this is kind of weird.
And we've seen a lot of that by this point in things. Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But
well,
like, that's how
like
firm
the Batman, where he's not even in the show for like several seasons.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And like I didn't like really religiously follow the Batman. I watched it for like a season or two and then kind of fell off on it. So I was really just kind of that Batman the Animated Series was just so perfect that I never really like went beyond it for anything. Ironically enough, I did watch Batman Beyond, but
that's part of the same continuity. It doesn't count.
Yeah, it all works. But I was just so obsessed with Batman the Animated Series, the new animated series, and then Batman Beyond around when it came around. But like, that was my Bible for Batman. Like, that's where all of my main knowledge from Batman comes, outside of reading comics and learning more about that stuff, or the games, which kind of further expands because it has a lot of expansive information in there if you want to read bios and stuff like that. So there's a lot to learn, but like, that animated series is like the foundation of all of my, Batman stuff. So it's tough to not go with anything other than that. I kind of wrestled with myself and wanted to almost go Gary Oldman because I just loved his portrayal for that character. But like, even then, there's some stuff that's a little like, we just didn't have enough time with that character to really, for it to take that, like, but there's just so much stuff with the animated series Gordon. That's really tough to give him over.
We could almost just go ahead and go right into the next segment without me even talking, because you basically just gave exactly the same speech I was going to. Yeah, exactly the same. Like, I want to say Gary Oldman, but I have to say animated series. Like, I have exactly the same thing you did.
Yeah.
And that's why I said I wasn't totally sure where I would land until we started talking about this, because they're almost they're almost like 50-50, you know, vying for the same spot, like about to cross the finish line at the same time. Like you said, it's hard to even pinpoint why. In my head, when I think of Jim Gordon, it is the animated series version, but it absolutely is, and he feels definitive in the same way that that second modern Doctor, what is it, Dr. 10 from Doctor Who, seems like the definitive Doctor for me. Like, there's other good ones. There's others almost as good as that, but when I think of that character, that's the one I think of. So... I'm talking about the Tenet Doctor. So with Jim Gordon, he's just the most likable one for me. Like, and they make a point to make him not perfect, and obviously he's a guy that can make mistakes, and he's a guy that can be maybe even sometimes a little bit too much of a stick in the mud, or he can accidentally verge on getting cynical because the city it can bring him down so much. But of course, he doesn't have the moral ambiguity that the comic book version does, again, kind of starting in year one, where, you know, he doesn't cheat on his wife. You don't have things like that. But it's a cartoon show. You're probably not going to get to those sorts of things. But he does still seem like a flawed guy. Like, when you get to Over the Edge, you kind of buy until you realize that it is a dream sequence, that may be what he would do if Barbara died. That, like, he would just you know, go after Batman and would kind of second guess everything he believed in up to that point. And like I kind of buy that guy as a guy who's constantly wrestling with his convictions, and after all, how could he do that job in that city if he wasn't? Like, how easy would it be for him to be corrupted by you know, a corrupt government, a corrupt police force, or because that's not a good mayor. Let's keep that in mind. And you know, Mayor Hill, and then but then also it would be pretty easy, like we explore with something in the comics like Killing Joke, to see that Gordon as being, you know, if he was somewhat with less moral fiber, as a guy who could be corrupted by the lunatics that he brings to justice. And I kind of like the idea that Batman kind of walking between those worlds is somehow the thing that kind of helps to keep him sane. I've always thought that was a really interesting, you know, kind of thing about Jim Gordon. But just that now I guess I'm kind of just like dissecting the character itself. But that animated series version is just the one I think of, and he's the most likable, and he's got a really like undeniably heartfelt relationship with his daughter. Like, that's absolutely the best Gordon Barbara relationship, which I think is the thing that I latch on to most, because I love that character so much. I'm more of a Barbara Gordon fan than I am of a lot of Batman characters. So I think of Gordon as a supporting Batgirl character as much as a supporting Batman character, which maybe sounds stupid, but I think of Batgirl as a protagonist a lot, and not just a side character with Batman, because I like that character, and of course she has a lot of her own stories, and so I think of Gordon more from her perspective than I do from Batman's, I guess, is what I'm saying.
I hear you. Yeah.
James asked about Telltale Gordon. I haven't played that in so long, I don't even remember what he's like all that much, or at least all that time.
I don't remember having... Yeah, I guess, well, yeah, they do that in kind of beginning of their relationship sort of deal with that game. I kind of did forget about Gordon in that game series as well.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm like,
I
know I dealt with him and stuff. I'm trying to remember what exactly. I remember there's a place where you have to decide if you're going to go help Jim Gordon or go help Harvey Dent. I remember that. I think it was Gordon. I think that's a choice that happens, but I can't really remember the relationship all that much, or if there was anything like majorly reimagined for that character, where like, here's why this Jim Gordon is a very different Jim Gordon. I don't remember that.
Yeah, I mean, he seemed pretty stock Gordon to me.
Oh, that's a good point. I'm sorry, that's a good point, Daniel, that you're making, and I'm glad you mentioned it. That when we get to see Barbara as the commissioner in Batman, she's great. Voiced by American Made. I think American Made.
Oh, really?
Or maybe that's not her, but it sounds a lot like her. I'm not sure. Anyway.
Yeah, she was great in that show. Yeah, that was a good nod, because it's great that she, you know, when she was done being Batgirl, because she was canonically Batgirl still, right? Yeah, because it's same universe.
Yeah.
So
And in the comics, they had to come up with some kind of a clever retcon to make, or I guess retcon. The comics are strange with Batman Beyond because it's a sequel to an animated series that the comics are not canonical with, but a lot of the events in the series have to gel with the comics, and it's the future of the comics. So when you get Barbara Gordon in that, she is standing on two legs, but has actually been Oracle and lost her legs at some point, which is not the case in Beyond, because that never happened. So, like, there is no Oracle in the Bruce Timm verse. She never, Killing Joke never happened to her, as far as I'm aware.
Gotcha. Oh, it's all so crystal clear. Canons and universes and... That's why movies should just be able to do whatever, like Into the Spider-Verse, that just get crazy. I guess, you know, they were doing a lot with the TV side of it, but I don't watch the TV, so do it for me, Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
But yeah, I agree with what you said about the Batman Begins Dark Knight version. And of course, you know, I just have issues with the way that character is handled in Rises, and so that doesn't help. I mean, I don't want to say that it drags it down horribly, because I mean, like, he's not any more out of character than other characters I think are written a little bit out of character in that. But one of the biggest problems with Gordon in Rises, of course, is that he is kind of made a little bit dumb in places to make the story work, where, you know, there's that whole, like, send every single cop underground where they could all get trapped, like, you know, and some people like to say, oh, well, he's kind of like, you know, delusional in the moment because he was in, you know, he'd gotten hurt and he was you know, hyped up on drugs or whatever. But that seems like a cop out to me. I don't think in that scene that we're supposed to be thinking, oh, he's making a bad choice. I think it was just, how do we get all these cops out of this movie so we don't have to deal with them? That's kind of how it watched to me. And it gets weirdly melodramatic. But just looking at that character when he's working in the other two movies, and I think he does all the way through. I mean, like, that guy is a real policeman, and he's got a lot of strategy, and he also seems like a pretty decent detective. And we have a Batman who doesn't get to do a lot of detective work, so it's nice that we have a Gordon that's actually kind of good at that. And Gordon in that is, and also I just like that he's got so much compassion for Bruce Wayne. That always just kind of tugged on my heartstrings, the way that whole thing is handled when he gives him the coat and all of that. Again, at the end of Rises, when it's called back to, it gets sappy, but the way it's handled in the first place, I think it's awesome. And I agree with you, though, that he just doesn't. We don't get to know him enough, and the biggest issue is just that we don't get to know him as a family man enough, and that's a really important part of Jim Gordon, that they don't have enough time, so it's got to get kind of you know, put in the background. And they do a good job
just hint at it.
of making, I mean, a little bit more than hinting at it. I mean, obviously, you know, his family gets in peril in the second movie, and he loses his wife, at least according to Rises, and all of that. But, like, I wish we could have lived with him a little bit longer. It's just that it's very difficult to do what Year One did, and it's amazing that it did this in 80, 90 pages, that I mean, I know I keep going to this, but I would be in this discussion even if we weren't reviewing it today. It's really impressive that Miller was able to make this such a dual protagonist piece. He's going to do it every time I lift it up. That he made it such a dual protagonist piece between Bruce Wayne and Jim Gordon. Now, Jim Gordon feels like more of the protagonist, and I think that we're not walled off from Batman. We get an internal monologue for him, but Gordon has I guess they both have character arcs that intermingle together, but I feel like I'm with Gordon more often, right? And he feels like the more human character, and so I feel like it's more Gordon's story. But going back and rereading it, I was like, oh wait, no, it's like full on dual protagonist. But anyway, that would have been a lot harder to do in Begins, and it does the best job it can of it. Like, you could sort of make the case that that's a dual protagonist story, but Gordon is a supporting character in that more than he is another protagonist, more so than this, where they are both protagonists together, having separate adventures that and arcs and thematic stuff that all converge and collide later on. Comic wise, I also, of course, love mainstream Gordon, going from Year One pretty much all the way clear up until the reboot, or the pseudo reboot with 52. And I mean, I like some Gordon stuff there too. But you know, the stuff we do with him in the last Snyder arc is really strange. Because it's like he's like middle-aged, and then we sort of de-age him, sort of, just so that he can be in a robot batsuit, which, like, you shouldn't need to de-age him to put him in a robot batsuit, but then when he's not in the robot suit, you're like, oh no, he's moving around like a 35-year-old, okay, or less, or younger. But anyway, so yeah, I mean, it's also hard to put anything over the Gordon in No Man's Land. That is also, of course, this Gordon going all the way up, and also, you know, stuff that we do with him in Gotham Central and other places. But anyway, let's just keep doing.
Sorry,
that.
I have it on hand. Do you remember in Batman Arkham Origins when they do the Alfred death fake out thing? It's like, oh no, Alfred has, and this is the like it's the prequel
and you're like,
game.
Well, we know
so
he's
like,
not gonna die, but I don't remember this happening. Like, no, I don't remember that.
He gets like crushed by rocks or something in the Batcave because Bane came and messed things up or something like that, and you come in and you use the shot gloves to bring him back to life. But
you know what?
That's how it works.
I do remember that. Now that you say that, I forgot it was Gordon that we did that with, but as soon as you said shot gloves...
No, not Gordon. No, it was Alfred.
I'm sorry.
Darn it.
Yeah, it was Alfred that happened with. Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking Gordon for some reason. But yeah. Anyway, there's that. Like, that has nothing to do with anything now.
No, that's okay. But then you're like, no, like, we know he's in those other games, and this is a prequel. Yeah. What are we doing?
I kind of mildly forgot when that was happening because the moment catches you up in it, but yeah.
God, that game has got prequelitis to the max.
Yeah.
But not any worse than Arkham City's sequelitis. Because that game has the worst sequelitis in a lot of things.
Yeah.
I actually am surprised that I'm saying I think Arkham Origins may technically be a better story than Arkham Knight, regardless of the myriad issues I have with it. I think it actually kind of might be. I guess the question you have to answer, again, this has nothing to do with Gordon. Okay.
It's something to do with Bane is real stupid in Arkham Origins, but that's more of a prequelitis thing as well.
And maybe some of it is stuff I'm not remembering. But here's the question you have to ask yourself. This is not related to Gordon, but it is related to Batman. So we're going to talk about it.
Okay. Batmosphere.
This is the question you got to ask yourself. Is the entire relationship and deconstruction of it, of Batman and the Joker like coming to all of the like philosophizing and stuff about and the interpretation of that it took us like 50 years or more to come to, happening in a 24-hour period, dumber than the reveal of Jason Todd in Arkham Knight. You be the judge. I can't tell you. I don't know which of those is worse.
Yeah. It's I mean, I like Arkham Knight. That's my biggest disappointment with Arkham Knight, is the whole Arkham Knight of it all. But I like that game more than most.
But I like it as a game, but not as much as a story. I'm just comparing the stories. Like, which of those is worse? It's hard for me not to say Arkham Knight is actually kind of worse than that. Just if we're comparing those revelations.
Yeah, Arkham Origins has some good stuff in it. But some of it's real dumb. There are far more plot conveniences in Arkham Origins than I feel in Arkham Knight. Arkham Knight's just poorly told.
It's also, you're right, because so much of it is retroactive. And then so much of Origins is retroactive going the other way, where you're like, well, you're only getting to this because you know what happens later. But, yeah, I guess another thing that would be fair to say then is that my perspective as a fan coming into these games obviously is different, because there's expectation and more of a stake I've got in Arkham Knight. You know what I mean? Like, moving into the future, seeing what happens to these characters going forward, and the anticipation of what Arkham Knight is, with me going, there's no way they pull that off, and then they didn't pull that off. And you go to Origins, and it's like, well, it's just some prequel thing. Like, I don't really care what happens in this, as far as like the Joker and everything goes. It's like your anticipation and your expectation is different.
Yeah, they had some Gordon in that game, Arkham Origins. They was they did a little bit of year one-ish, sort of, because he was a lieutenant. He was Lieutenant Gordon in that one.
Yeah, the only thing I remember the only if you're gonna do it to me, I'm gonna do it to you. The only thing I remember about Jim Gordon in that game is that part where you have to go on the bridge when it's like I think in the snow, and you have to meet Gordon like underneath the bridge. It took me like an hour to find him. I just could not figure out where the heck I was supposed to go.
That part happened. It happened to me too. Yeah, Firefly is going around and blowing up the bridge, and you have to meet Gordon, and that's.
That was one of the parts where I think where it was kind of glitchy, where like it didn't show you where you were supposed to go, or like you would be. Was that the part where you would get to around where you were supposed to be, but it wouldn't trigger an event it was supposed to trigger? Is that what it was? I don't remember.
You had to fight a couple people in front of a door and then go through the door, I think.
That's what it was.
And I just remember fighting the people and then going like, where am I supposed to go?
Now I've heard that a lot of the buggy issues that made it hard for me to finish that game got fixed later, so I should go through it again at some point, because with patches I bet it's not as big of a problem.
Yeah, about a little over a year ago when I was at your place and we finished the end of Arkham Asylum, shotgunned all the way through Arkham City in one go, in one night. And then I went home.
It was glorious. It was the most fun I've ever had with you.
Yeah, so I had a taste of our Asylum, played all of City, and then I went home and I had just been sporadically playing Origins. And then I happened to finish Origins right after I got back from that. So I was man, I just finished 3 different Batman Arkham games. And I had played Night around-ish then, not at the same time. But yeah, it was real strange. In playing all those games, technically Origins is the weakest for me gameplay-wise. And I like the first one.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm just saying story-wise, I cannot decide if it's worse than Night.
Oh yeah, yeah. I would say I would put Night above Origins because there's too many contrivances. Like they literally they just shock Bane in the brain and say he forgot everything that happened because he knows Bruce Wayne's identity in that game. He knows he's Batman, and they just literally shock him, and then they're like, "You don't remember now for the later games."
Yeah.
And I was like, That's stupid.
How much of that is just we need a bunch of material because games are long, and so we need exciting dramatic twists and things, and even
the Black Mask stuff.
Yeah, which was supposed to be the game, and then it wasn't.
And then it was the Joker, and then it becomes the Joker game again.
Which is weird because they didn't sell it on the Joker, so why did you have to do that? Like, if you got enough people to buy the game without knowing the Joker was in it, why did you need the Joker?
Yeah. It's very, strange. And those are the people making the next game, so that's what I'm kind of worried about. And there was some news about that recently, too.
Is that still happening? I have heard so many different things. Like, I've heard people say, we can't even be sure if they're making a game at this point.
Oh, yeah. The talk now is that they'll be showing off gameplay or a reveal at the whole DC fan con event or whatever it's called.
I'm hoping that actually happens because I'm sick to death of the rumor mill on those games, and just on Rocksteady and or Montreal making something else DC related. I'm sick of the Superman rumors. I'm sick of, I know that's been a while, but I'm sick of the Suicide Squad rumors that just started recently. That just came around. They need to finally come out and tell us what they're doing so that the fanboys will stop leaving tweets and trying to get something viral. It's getting really irritating.
Yeah. People just gotta be patient. But yeah, no, their whole marketing window on this would have been different had there been things like E3 still going on and
I think
the
a lot
big
of people
cons
expected something to come out during the Sony thing.
Yeah.
And
that would have been prime opportunity.
And when that didn't happen, because I think the rumor was, something's going to come. I don't mean to keep talking about rumors, but the problem is a lot of this we don't know what the facts are, and then sometimes the rumors end up being true. So, for instance, we heard about the idea of the Snyder Cut releasing on HBO Max a long time before we got that announcement. Was the guy that said that right about it, or did he get lucky? I don't know, but sometimes these rumors end up actually being true, and sometimes it's coincidence, and sometimes it was somebody that knew something months before we found out about it. I don't know. Yeah. So anyway, it's just getting harder and harder to even know what is fact. So I tend to be a lot quicker to go, this is rumor, because it may be fact, but I can't be sure. Like, even with things that seem confirmed, I'm not always sure. So it's very difficult to talk about these things these days. But anyway, but I'm just saying, like, I was surprised along with everybody else that we didn't get something brought up if there is a game happening during the Sony thing. So but it will make sense if they were saving it for the DC thing that's right around the corner. If that's why
I think that's what they're. I think they're looking to get like big announcements going on regarding the movies and regarding the shows, and I think they want to hit on all cylinders along with the games. So.
Yeah, of course.
I'd imagine that's what they're going for. They want to make it worth it, the bang. Like they want to be like, hey, we can do this ourselves and just come and watch our thing, as opposed to, because they've been pulling away from Comic-Con and all that stuff. And there's been a lot of studios
under their hat as long as humanly possible. I don't think we even knew about that VR game until shortly before they put the thing out. It's like, oh, they were working on a VR game all along. Okay.
Yeah. Weird. Although I'd love to see Rocksteady do more VR stuff, even if it's not Batman related. Like, just they seem to have a pretty good handle on what makes a kind of like fun little short VR experience.
I've heard that. I've always really wanted to play that, but I don't know if my eyes will work very well with VR, and I don't want to spend the $400 to find out. I don't know anybody that's got one. Like, if I could try it out first. Oh, okay. Well, maybe at some point we can get together. When we get together again, maybe you can bring your VR. We could.
Yeah, one of these days. Do you ever make it out here?
I would love to.
Yeah, absolutely. One of these days. When it's safe to do so.
When it's, definitely when it's safer. Sure. But I've always been stoked to come see your stuff. So. Yeah,
buddy. Oh, and yeah, we didn't really talk about Jeffrey Wright. He's the new Gordon in town for the Batman.
Like awesome casting, man. I mean, I'm definitely excited about that.
He's been one of those like that guys for me for a long time, where he's just popped up in so many movies that I've watched. When he was cast as Felix Leiter in the Daniel Craig James Bond movies, I was like, oh, that's perfect for him. I was like actually happy to see him. Like they never gave him much, but I was like, hey, he's in there. Jeffrey Wright's in there. Like Source Code was a big one earlier on for me, where I was just like, oh, he's so good.
And that movie does not hold up the way I remember it. We reviewed that last year. I was like, a couple years ago, and I'm like, oh, it's not that great, but he's awesome in it, sure.
It's always been one of those movies that I'm like, oh, that logic's a little wonky, but okay. But it's an enjoyable movie. Well, like enough on its own, but yeah, if you start to really think about it, it falls apart real quick.
And the choice in Justice League was a good one, but he was there for 3 seconds, so I can't really speak to that.
Yeah.
What's his face? I can never remember that actor's name. The J. Jonah Jameson actor who played him in Justice League.
Oh, J.K. Simmons. Yeah.
I mean, that was a good pick, but he's not there for anything.
Yeah, didn't get to do anything.
Somebody left a comment when I announced to the show and was like, "Oh, clearly that's the answer," and I'm like, "Not based on 30 seconds, man." Like,
he didn't have anything. He had one scene walking through GCPD. And then he was on the rooftop.
It's definitive Gordon based on performances, not casting. You know what I mean? That might be the definitive casting for a fan of that actor, sure. But he wasn't there long enough for me to say that. Now, if the DCEU keeps going, I guess it's always possible that he's brought back, and we could have 2 of a lot of characters, because the Batman, of course, is supposed to be a completely separate continuity. And so if they do this multiverse thing, it's possible that it gets roped in somewhere where they cross universes. But there's always that question of, or some people still have this question. I remember seeing comments in a Captain Logan show a couple weeks ago about this, where people were like, well, Cap, how do we know that this isn't supposed to be a younger version of Affleck's Batman? And it's clearly not. Like, that is not what they're doing.
They're doing their own thing. I don't know why. Like, I mean, I get it. At this point, we've been bombarded with so many different versions of so many different things. I really kind of, at this point, I'm like, yeah, whatever. I kind of don't really care anymore. It's like, I get it at this point. Like, there is no more, like, I like that the MCU's being classy and actually giving their, like, time to breathe between them bringing the X-Men back, because it just feels like, if it were in any other hands, they'd just be immediately like, okay, new X-Men right away. They've gotten used to it.
Yeah, and I don't know. It's funny you say classy, because I don't completely understand their motivations for that, but I wanna agree with you and say that's a classy move. Like, considering, and I know this isn't Batman related, but considering, but Dan's and I never get to talk about anything else. The MCU right after, and a lot of people are talking about this and kind of worried about it, right after Endgame, don't have a lot of things that are as big as the characters that they just wrote out. And there's a lot of worry that we've got MCU fatigue and that people are going to be kind of just not as interested in that universe once you lose Iron Man and Captain America. A way to immediately get people interested again would have been for the next phase you did to be the X-Men FF phase, and they didn't do that. And you could say, well, they didn't have the rights long enough. They would have had to, they couldn't have rushed it that fast. They couldn't have rushed it for the very beginning of the phase. They could have gotten in the end of the phase. They've got movies that are supposed to be in this phase that they haven't started making yet. So, I mean, like, at this point, they absolutely could have done that. It may not have been any good having to rush it, but they could have. There's other things that they kind of rushed to the table pretty quickly, relatively. So, like, that, I guess that could have happened.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll see how it all goes. I have no clue about this next phase of Marvel movies. Curious to see how it goes. I never go into a thing wanting to dislike it, so it's like, win me over. And, like, I had no expectation going to Iron Man, and I was like, oh, that's really good. So, that started that for me. So it's like, hey, make me a fan of it, and we'll see how it goes from there.
As far as the casting for Gordon, what is that actor's name again? I can't remember. Jeffrey Wright?
Jeffrey Wright.
Is that right? Yeah. Is Wright? Dagan Spear says, I'm not so into race changing, but I think also I'd prefer him a bit more physically fit as far as it goes for the character. The Justice League one wasn't really one I was into, even if in look. Yeah, my whole thing with the race changing thing is he seems like a really good choice as far as persona goes, regardless of the race thing. And I don't want to get political about this, but the only comment I'll make about that is I am fine with that sort of thing with a character like that, as long as now that there's precedent for a black man playing him, we don't have to always now forevermore it look like this guy now. Like if the precedent should be, okay, maybe there's like other people that can play Gordon, doesn't have to always be like a middle-aged white guy. But I would just hate it if the right actor next time came around and was of a different race and we went, well, he was played by a black guy, so we can't, so it has to be that from now on. That's the only thing that would annoy me about that.
Yeah, I don't really care. As long as it's a good actor, and it's, again, I'm not too married to things. I'm for whatever. Jeffrey Wright's perfect.
No,
I'm not married to things.
Exactly. I think he is too.
Yeah, sometimes you just, it was like with J. Jonah Jameson. It was like with J.K. Simmons, where it was like, oh, perfect. Like, that just fits. That fits. The idea of that actor playing that character is perfect. Curious to see where it goes, but...
Well, and I also liked the choice for Perry White in Man of Steel. I thought that was fantastic.
Yeah, man. Same. Yeah. Yeah, anybody would be better than Frank Langella from Superman Returns. Like,
Frank
he was
Langella
like,
would have been a good choice 10 years earlier, 20 years earlier, and in a better movie. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how much of that is casting and how much of that is just he was wrong for the version they wrote, though.
Yeah, unfortunately, we'll never do a Perry White episode of Batmosphere. So let's get it out now. I'm Lois and Clark, Perry White. That was my Perry White.
Yeah, all the way.
Lane Smith.
Lane Smith is the absolute definitive, and objectively, like I won't take anything else. Like, we're just right about it. It is Lane Smith.
He would have been an interesting Gordon, actually.
Oh, he would have been an interesting Gordon. Lane Smith would have been somewhere between, like, the 89 Gordon and like traditional Gordon.
Great Caesar's Ghost.
Yeah, that's it. But also Great Shades of Elvis.
Is that something he said in one of those movies?
No, that's the... Dude, you can't say Lane Smith and not know Great Shades of Elvis. That's his whole thing. That's how they modernized it. So instead of Great Caesar's Ghost, he was obsessed with Elvis, and he always said Great Shades of Elvis. That's the that's the Lois and Clark Lane Smith.
I just grew up with him.
Version of Perry White.
I haven't watched it as a conscious adult. It was only when I was a kid when I watched Lois and Clark.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to bust your chops about it. But what I'm surprised by is that you could come up with Lane Smith and not know his like tagline.
Well, My Cousin Vinny is like one of my favorite movies. And
I forgot he was in that. I haven't seen that.
He's the prosecuting attorney in that one.
That's right. I forgot about that. Yeah,
he
was a character actor. He's in all kinds of movies.
Yep. Well, and that's why I know him, because I'm obsessed with character actors. It's like Jeffrey Wright, like I was saying before.
Somebody also said that one of my favorite actors right now, Sterling K. Brown, would maybe not have been a bad Gordon. And now that you said it, I can't unsee it. It hurts my feelings. Yeah, that would have been amazing. I'm gonna cry now. That's awesome. Jeffrey Wright seems really good, but okay. Anyway, well, should we go ahead and talk about this book that we can't stop putting up in front of the camera?
I don't know what you're talking
about. Danz, for people who just came in, what are we reviewing today, sir?
Well, today, and we couldn't resist but to show you, we both have a copy of it. We are reviewing Batman Year One by Frank Miller and David Mazzucchelli.
Yeah.
With Richmond Lewis. Those are names that are on the cover. A guy
who I think, talking about the artist, Mazzucchelli, I think he is like perfect for Miller's sensibilities. I think this is a thing that you could show to people that have looked at one or two other Miller things and tell them Miller drew it, and they might believe you. And I don't think that he's aping Miller. I just think that he's so in tune with Miller's storytelling that he's got a style that, if not like just like now, Miller's style also shifts for different things he draws, right? You're not always looking at the same thing when you look at Miller. Like his Daredevil and his Batman are like night and day things. But it's like I don't know. It's like he had like he made like a robot that could draw his scripts and would be like exactly what he would want, but not what he would draw necessarily. If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, why are we reviewing Year One, Danz?
Oh, because it's a Gordon story.
It is.
It follows Jim Gordon, our friend.
Well, Danz, why don't you just give us a real basic plot synopsis for people who have not read one of, if not, I believe, arguably the most important and influential Batman story of all time. And I know some people are not going to agree with me when I say that, but I have reasons for saying it, and we'll get into them later. Go ahead, Dan.
So this came out in the 80s, correct?
1986. This was just shortly after the Dark Knight Returns. So remember that Returns comes first. That's really important because he gets this job partly because that comes out and is so insanely popular and such a big deal, and they are rebooting a lot of their line at this point, particularly Superman and Wonder Woman, and they go, well, we need to, and O'Neill, I mentioned earlier, Denny O'Neill has a forward in one of these where he talks about this, that
this one.
I don't know if it's in this one, but I read it in an online version that I was looking at. It's not in my copy here, but I did read it. And anyway, so he wrote that, and he wrote that forward in '88, so it must have been the first trade that came out for this. And he says, because not everything went to trade back then, he says that they thought that a lot of characters were outdated and they felt like they needed to have new origins. And so when they did Superman and Wonder Woman, they changed the origins. When they did Batman, they felt like Batman's origin was too definitive and just didn't need that much tweaking. So instead, they got Miller in, who volunteered to do this. And of course, they weren't going to say no to Miller at that point in his career. And they bring him in order to expound upon it. Now, at least that's the way O'Neill tells the story. Now, in my opinion, there are things about this that are pretty retconny. The biggest one, of course, is what is done with Catwoman. The idea that Selina Kyle was ever a prostitute, I think, was a really like kind of dicey and bold choice, and one that not everybody agreed with. That does feel like a straight up retcon. But beyond that, most of the stuff that's done with Batman and Gordon specifically, all things are pretty much all things that track okay, as far as the continuity goes.
Yeah, for sure. The story basically just follows. Is Jim just moving to Gotham, or has he already been stationed there a little bit?
No, he's just coming in for the first time. We see his first meeting with Loeb. We see him not knowing how the kind of corrupt process of the police go, and Loeb doesn't know that he's not going to play ball with them and all of that.
He's worried about bringing his family into this city that is not doing very well. There's the Loeb right there. I love the character models in this entire thing. Like,
they're very distinctive.
Yeah, Batman looks like Cary Grant, and like there's like it's so like classic Hollywood. They all look like movie stars.
But that's a great point.
Yeah, and then Loeb is like
very movie storyboards, which is part of the reason that I don't like the animated version, because this should have adapted really well to a movie version, and when you just try to play it exactly like the comic, it feels really stilted and like you're watching a motion comic. There's no excuse for there not to be a really good movie version of this, and we'll talk about that later, because that's a thing that I want to discuss in the Bat Chat segment.
For sure. So yeah, we're following Jim, who's a straight and narrow cop, who's just trying to get on through life, keep his family safe, and all that jazz. He might have a kid on the way, and he's learning how to operate within the system where his partner is clearly on the take, and he's not really willing to bend too much. Well, he is. He's hanging in there, but. He's not quite.
He doesn't want to compromise his principles, certainly, and he's constantly we're talking about Gordon, and he's constantly bringing trying to bring cops to justice in a system that doesn't like rats. All of this should seem familiar if you've seen the Nolan trilogy. We deal with this a lot in Dark Knight, and that's where the kind of Two-Face idea comes from. Flass is his partner in this, who is who the Flass is based on. Very different looking character, but they're the same kind of slime ball, certainly.
Yeah, the movie Flass is a slime ball, and he looks like a slime ball. In year one, Flass looks like all American football. He was the quarterback.
He's very much the anti-Jim Gordon. He's who Jim Gordon could have been had he allowed himself to be corrupted.
Yeah, at
least is kind of the way that I see him.
Yeah, absolutely.
So importantly, year one goes through a whole year. We should mention that. So a lot of so every few pages you get into a new date, and but unlike Long Halloween, we don't have one square like mystery or bad guy plot that we're trying to solve over a year. Like, it is a cohesive story, absolutely. And if there is a bad guy plot, it is of the commissioner. It is Loeb's plot, but it isn't like somebody dies on January 1st and we solve it at the end in December 31st. Yeah. It's not a square year like that. But it is just Batman's first year, and Gordon's
it's all
first
a day
year
in
too.
the life. It's a day in the life sort of story, but except for it's a year in the life. There is that through line, but ultimately it's kind of a series of things and how these characters are gelling together, because it's not just Gordon's story, it's also Bruce's story and a little bit of Selina's story. We kind of follow from those characters and how they interact with each other within this system where you have the cop who's just looking to get rid this corrupt system of its corruption, and you have this outside force, Batman, who's trying to become the street vigilante, and then you have this criminal who is also trying to get her start. There's kind of like you were talking about with her being a prostitute in this. It's very kind of Taxi Driver-y.
Yeah,
this is it's around the same era. As far as that, well, a little bit later, about a decade later, but
you're right though. I didn't think of that as an inspiration. Absolutely, and just those kind of gritty crime dramas of the 70s. Yeah,
yeah, absolutely. So it's trying to be kind of that darker thing. I like how it plays the whole. The media is portraying Batman as this criminal, and Selina is annoyed that she's getting swept up into she's like Batman's assistant. This whole dichotomy of all three of them intermixing it's interesting how they do it.
Yeah, with Selina, that's happening because, and I love that Miller even thought to make this a major part of the story, that the world is starting to revolve around Batman very quickly, because he becomes the urban legend, and what he's trying to do works, which is intimidate the criminals, but also, and he doesn't talk about this as much as he does in something like Begins, but also inspire the common man, right? So this is... It's really cool how Miller goes back to what Batman was at his inception and just updates it and reminds everybody what Batman is supposed to be. And you can tell that he's very much got in the back of his mind, I want people to stop thinking about the 60s show when they think of Batman. I mean, like, that seems to be at the fore of what he's trying to accomplish with this. And so he is that crusader. Like the Cape Crusader, we almost think of a campier idea now because we use that in the 60s show, and it's alliterative and it sounds light and fun. But there's a difference between the superhero Batman and the Caped Crusader, but vigilante Batman, which is like a guy who is on the streets not just saving people, but trying to like enact like real change at a surface level. So there's a big difference between the Batman who just fights crime and the Batman who fights corruption, and that's why Begins is taking so much from this, because Batman doesn't just go out every night and stop some random criminals. He's trying to like create real lasting change by stamping out corruption. So one of the most important scenes in this, I think, is when Batman goes in and he goes to a party that Loeb is at, and he tells the up-and-ups that are creating the environment for all of this crime to thrive in Gotham, you are no longer safe. That is 1939 Crusader Batman. That's the Batman who's actually doing a lot of the kinds of things that Superman is first doing when he's when he's a Crusader on the ground before he's like above us in the clouds. And it's really important that he brought us back to that.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that, talking about the movie, the adaptation. I remember that scene being kind of not as impactful as it reads in the comics.
Yeah, and I haven't seen that in a long time because it's not good. I thought about watching it again for this, and I just didn't get around to it, but I'll do a rewind on that eventually. But yeah, I mean, I've talked about that a lot, and like we're talking about the animated Year One movie, and it's just really weird because a lot of the problem with a lot of those adaptations ends up being you took a creative license that just didn't work, where like you went off with yourself and you told a less interesting story by adding weird stuff that didn't need to go there, or you really truncated it, and that didn't have that problem at all. It was just exactly this book, as if somebody was just reading it to you, as opposed to like really actually adapting the thing. And a lot of the dialogue just didn't translate well. Like, it needed to actually be adapted. And it's weird saying that because this feels like really good movie storyboards where you could almost readapt it, but just something about the way they did it, like in trying to just making it straight exactly off the page, it doesn't work at all. You had to actually adapt it.
Yeah, I gotta rewatch it at some point. I remember enjoying it well enough. But
I made the mistake of reading this like minutes before I watched it. And I was just like, it doesn't work. Yeah.
Dang.
If you and this is what I've kind of gotten from people who watched it in a vacuum who have never read this seem to be fine with it. People that really know this story didn't like it, or at least a lot of them.
Gotcha. Yeah, I can't remember how long before I read this before I had actually seen the thing, seen the animated version, because I remember being excited for the animated version when it came around. But it's not like this story had sat with me for a very long time before that. I probably read it maybe within the year that it came out, but either way. I like in this story like Gordon isn't just like the animated series version. He's not like glossy. He's not perfect. He has faults. Yes, he stands up, for corruption and all that stuff. And when he gets eventually jumped by Flass and his cronies, like he gets back at them, or gets back at Flass specifically. He's not too afraid to get down and dirty when need be, when his family's being threatened and all that stuff. And we see him have his infidelity with his partner, or
with Essen,
with Essen.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no! It's just he's not he's a man who's tempted by things. He's not completely straight and narrow, and he's not completely one note with, you know, who he is as a character. He's a man. He has weaknesses.
It's an incredible balance that Miller strikes, and it's the reason that this works as the foundation for everything that comes after it. A lot of what I love about Batman maybe doesn't happen without this book, and I don't think I can over-exaggerate that. It's so wonderfully character-driven, and it's also just really, really smart about what... Like, we're still obviously in a heightened reality. I've always got to say that with a thing like this. It's very noirish in its way. There's a lot of big, almost purple prose in the internal monologue and stuff. It's a very neo-noirish kind of piece. But what rings true, what is believable on a human level, is the way you end up buying the kind of person this would have to be to come to the city in the first place, to stay here, to need to work with Batman, and to not be terrible at his job in order to need to call out Batman. What an incredible balancing act that all ends up being. So he's got to have, like, kind of, if not skeletons in his closet, like, just not the most squeaky clean past, where he's looking for a job, and this is a place that will have him at the very beginning. That's important. And then when he gets there, what kind of thing keeps him there? Well, if he is perfect and squeaky clean, he's probably not going to stay here. It's going to break him too fast. He's going to be like, well, I can't solve the problems of this place. He has to, like, understand the inner workings of a corrupt police department and work within that while still having to change it. It's also the reason that he's able to work with Dent. You notice that Dent has that where, like, he is, of course, more above board than, like, anybody else, and he's actually trying to solve problems, and he cares about people, but within the confines of the system he's having to work in, he doesn't really have any qualms with, like, letting bad politicians go when he has to for the sake of the greater good. That guy's playing three-dimensional chess, and that's the way Gordon has to kind of start to think about it, too, and he gets a little bit smarter about all of that as it goes along, where he's like, oh, okay, these are the rules of this place, and I'll bend them as much as I can, but I can't, like, fully break them. And then I like what you said earlier about he and like, on first read, I found myself, years ago, I found myself wondering why Catwoman even needed to be in the story. It almost read like, well, we want another Batman character so that it feels enough like a Batman thing, and we don't really have a lot of ladies in this book, so we'll throw in a costume, you know, female character. They all three kind of weirdly create each other, even though none of them has hardly a line of dialogue together, except for Bruce Wayne and Gordon in his house when Bruce is pretending like he's not Batman to Gordon, which we should talk about, because that whole thing is really interesting, and kind of bold and gutsy for Miller to do right away. That he would have a Gordon who would suspect Bruce Wayne and no one but Bruce Wayne as being Batman, and that is the foundation for Batman. That's crazy, and it works. It's really neat. But anyway, yeah, these three characters all kind of weirdly end up creating each other. Selena doesn't think about putting on a costume if it's not for Batman. Batman is maybe more... I don't know if I want to say, like, he's more compassionate, but just something about the scene with the cat seems really important for developing his character. Like, if Selena's not there and doesn't send in that cat, at the very least, I don't find Batman as sympathetic, right? At the very least, there's that. Maybe she brings out something in him that is there already, but I, the reader, need her to do that. And interesting that, like, what will become a major, like, romantic, fling in his life, like a major female influence, ends up bringing out the compassion in him without them even having screen time panel time, except for, and again, I just thought of this. Sorry, there's a lot in here. There's a lot to talk about here. I also just realized that Selena and Gordon both interact with Bruce Wayne, but I think never Batman. Well, Gordon does interact with Batman some, but neither of them talk to Batman. Selena's there on the street when her sidekick stabs Bruce Wayne in the leg the first time he comes out and tries to fight crime before he's put on a batsuit, which I did not remember. I did not remember she stabs him in the leg.
Yeah. That little girl. It's funny when you mentioned the cat. Yeah. Gordon specifically, when he's like, you know, trying to level out Batman in his brain, like he mentions the cat. Like he's like, oh, he saved that cat. Like he can't be a bad guy if he saved that cat. So that's his big thing there too. That helps Gordon kind of put him, categorize him.
Yeah, it helps him humanize him a little bit. And I think it's, and we could maybe complain that that's just a token thing to kind of get the audience on Batman's side, because otherwise he seems really brutal. Like, this is a brutal Batman.
Oh yeah, he's very, he's not pulling any punches.
No, and that's an understatement. Like, this isn't a Batman that's straight up killing people. This is a Batman that gets really lucky that no one dies.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
There are places where he says, oh, I should have crippled that guy. And this is the foundation for Batman moving forward. Now, a lot of writers will not go that far with him, and then I think animated series becomes really influential in having a Batman who talks a big game but never goes too far in brutalizing people. And I think a lot of even comics after this like to do more of that kind of thing with Batman. This is a Batman who just like breaks vertebrae and stuff and doesn't think anything of it, and he just, again, gets kind of lucky that nobody dies. But you can also make the argument, I get where Miller's coming from, that is all necessary in what he's trying to accomplish. You may not condone it, but I mean, this is the thing that separates Batman from Superman. I think you can make the argument that sometimes with Batman later, the chasm between Batman and Superman gets less and less, to the point where you wonder why Superman has such a big problem with Batman. Mm-hmm. And you almost want Batman to be, if not going this far, a little bit farther, where you're like, well, is the only thing that Batman can do that the cops can't do, like, break and enter? You know, like, don't you need a character that is able to cross some lines? And I think that's where Miller's coming from with making him as brutal as he is in this. Yeah.
Plus, Miller just likes when Batman cripples people.
He's also written a whole long run on Daredevil, where that's a character that doesn't have qualms about those sorts of things at all. And so he's bringing some of that to some of those sensibilities to Batman here.
Yeah. Well, and I know it's different writers. You got Alan Moore with Watchmen, but like there are points where it was like Gordon was kind of Rorschach-y to me. I don't know why, like,
and Batman too.
Yeah, both of them were. But you know, it's because we're kind of following their journaling or whatever.
That was big in the 80s. And what's really funny is Miller is like a dog chasing his tail, because he's influencing a lot of people and getting them to doing that. And then in the exact same time that he's influencing people and they're all doing that, he's also still doing that.
Yeah. I mean, it works well enough as like a framing device, to where you're kind of just picking up at random things, points throughout the year. I'm just locked on this cat. But yeah.
So I mean, there's a bazillion things I want to talk about. Real quick, let's go ahead and just go through some of the major influences. This may be an obvious thing to do, but there were a few things that I had forgotten are here that influence a lot of things after this. This was not one of them. I remember this being here. So the big Batman calls all the bats to him with a sonar device, specifically in his shoe, is directly out of year one. And I think it's interesting, by the way, that we have things directly pulled right from this book in Batman Begins and even in Dark Knight. And the big thing Schumacher originally wanted to do was year one. We could have had some of this stuff 10 years earlier. And like this was always thought of by different people in Hollywood as the thing to do with Batman. And again, it does influence 89, but Begins a lot more, because Begins, of course, is an origin story. And the big new thing that it brought was, what exactly is Batman doing in those 10 years? We actually get to follow him, and we hadn't really done that. And but when he gets back, a lot of the things that and other movies and shows and things, of course, borrow from that as well. But this was one of the big things in screen media to directly adapt a lot of stuff from year one. Obviously, everybody does the pearls. We can complain about that forever. Although we don't actually see them bounce in this. We just see them on her in the first place. I always remembered that being from this, that they like bounce. So I wonder if there's a flashback in Dark Knight Returns that has that, and that's what everybody is always going to with Miller. Because I just don't right away remember after going back to this. But you also have a lot of the players are the same, right? So when Batman, or when Bruce Wayne starts to become Batman, he's dealing with, in Batman Begins, a lot of the same players he's dealing with here. So Commissioner Loeb is there. Curiously, we never know how corrupt Loeb is in the Nolan movies. I always wonder that. Because we make a big deal out of how corrupt the police department is, and we never talk about what exactly Loeb is doing.
He seems pretty nonplussed in Dark Knight, like when they're locking him up and he's pulling out the scotch to get through the. It's like, oh, this happens all the time, Gordon.
Yeah. He says I've learned how to deal with it a long time ago, but that still doesn't tell us how much of the corruption he's part of, and like. Yeah, he's like, how much stuff is he allowing to happen, and how much does he not know about? Like, I never know what that guy's character is. I don't mean.
Yeah, they just don't give him any screen time.
Yeah, but I just mean like the moral character, the moral fiber of that guy. I couldn't begin to tell you. And then Falcone is directly out of this. And of course Flash is directly out of this. And like those are three of the key players in Begins. And then a lot of the stuff that's done with Dent, I always go to Long Halloween. I mean, in Dark Knight, I always go to Long Halloween, but more of it is from this, or at least some of it is from this. Yeah,
they're definitely turning him into the, like, you know, we're going to need you to help, you know, since he's working in he's working in internal affairs in this, right? So it's you know, straight Dark Knight. He's Gordon's contact within that. So yeah, it's because exactly what you said. Same thing with me. I always go Long Halloween with, the Dark Knight does tackle a lot of Long Halloween, but this one
particularly with actual Two-Face stuff, but like where he begins starts here. Because we also have so, you know, we got Batman Begins, we got Catwoman Begins, we got Gordon Begins, we also have Dent Begins, you know, we have Two-Face Begins, but he is a lot more in the background in this. Like, he's not that mixed up in everything. We're just kind of dropping him in exactly the same way 89 did him, which is interesting.
Yeah, he's just kind of there. We're introduced to him, and he's partly a part of the story, but he's barely involved.
We do have more of a sense of what his moral character is, maybe. And that is also true in 89. Like he's trying to stamp out corruption. You know. We're working on it. Like, you know, we know he's a good guy.
Man, I wish they would have. Well, I like that they brought Billy D. Williams back for the voice in the Lego movie, the Lego Batman movie, but it would have been cool to actually see him in live action do something. Anyway,
well,
Harvey
Dent.
Dent.
if they can't he be trusted? If we hurry up and get the 89 stuff going with Keaton, I guess it's possible to bring him back for 5 seconds, but I don't
it's just not the same as like young them doing it, what was promised way back when.
It would also be really weird because the only thing you could do at this point is either have him be an elderly Two-Face or have him be a Dent that was Two-Face and now he's not Two-Face.
Oh yeah, could do that.
You know, so there's stuff you could do. Okay, what are some of the major aspects that you really want to talk about? I have been kind of hogging the floor here.
The art is amazing. I absolutely love a lot of these panels. There's a couple of them in there. I mean, the coloring's a little. I mean, it's very 80s.
And very Miller. Miller is often colored like this.
Yeah, it's very off-colored, very vibrantly colored at points. Yeah, that guy has like red eyes.
And very mystery looking.
Yeah, that kind of scared me. And
that scared me.
It's just like there's a couple times where they're like really accentuating like oddly colored eyes. I think at one point Gordon has like really kind of pink bloodshot eyes. I want to say Selena or somebody else's eyes are very green at one point. There's a lot of eye fascination going on at points. But I like how basically it's drawn too. Like you see there at the bottom of that panel right there, like the background is suggested but not really focused on. Like they draw a door frame and the corner of a wall and that's it. And then you get the desk and the chairs. But it's like there's not much going on other than that, it can be very basic, but also have a lot of detail crammed in there at points too. So it is very well arted by, you said, David Mazzucchelli.
Yeah, and just like a lot of noirs were shot, right, where you have a lot of shadow around a desk, and you don't even see the rest of the room, or it seems to go off for miles on end, and we're just focusing on the one place we are. And I guess the symbolism of that kind of shooting is like, I'm never going to get out of here. This is my life. This is all it is. And so it's intentionally minimal. It's not lazily drawn.
Yeah.
And
it's
just
not always so simple either.
Cinematic.
There's a lot going on. And
well, like a page like this, which is kind of one of your big money shots with Batman and his glider. Cool that he goes as far as to having those kinds of gadgets in this. He's understated enough with the gadgets where he doesn't do anything crazy, but like super over the top that feels too toyetic. But he does have stuff that doesn't feel possible or likely possible in real life that feels very unique to Batman, like the sonar trigger in the foot. Yeah, I agree. I like the Catwoman outfit. Yeah, I like it a lot too. It's super classic. It's one of my favorites. Very basic. Not too much going on. And it's interesting that like this Catwoman specifically was kind of like a dominatrix, so it's you kind of go fully there with, she was already kind of wearing a cat suit in a way. Yeah, Miller's sensibilities, I'm not surprised that he went there with that, but it's weird, it's oddly believable, and I like the idea that Catwoman, I just thought of this, is kind of the first villain that Batman has a big hand in creating, but not a psychopath. Like, this book is not at all about the way Batman might be inspiring insane people yet. We're not to the escalation thing, and Begins wasn't really about that yet either. It kind of you planted that idea. We should also mention that the end of this book does the same thing that Begins will do later, where it goes, there's this guy, he's called the Joker, I'll look into it. This does the same thing. Batman's not in that scene, but Gordon says, I'm going to go meet with him and talk to him about this. Clearly, we took that right out of this book. Can't wait to go hang out with my friend Batman and tell him all about this guy I heard about. If you haven't read this in a really long time, you may be surprised going back to this by just the sheer amount of really specific details that movie pulls directly from it. Because some of it I had forgotten. I forgot that this ended, with that. And again, another thing that I had forgotten about is that Gordon definitely by the end of this knows, or is about 89% sure, I'll say 89, is about 89% sure, Dan, that Bruce Wayne must be Batman. That is one of my favorite things about this book. But he didn't see him with his glasses on. He's practically blind without his glasses, he said. He's also the only suspect he has. Sarah Essen suggests, we'll go back a little bit and find that scene. So where he's there in the house. So Sarah Essen is responsible for Gordon figuring out that Bruce Wayne is Batman. I did not remember that. She's in a car with him and goes, well, there's this rich guy who got his parents killed. Maybe he is Batman. And here's why it's probably not Dent. I also didn't remember that the idea of people thinking Dent is Batman from Dark Knight comes out of this book. And that's really neat. And neat that they even thought to put that there. I should mention that the Nolan movies don't do that irritating, origin story thing that a lot of superhero movies and other things, et cetera, do in adapting some other thing like a TV show or a comic or something, where they looked at one book and then they didn't really understand the character, but they just kept throwing in stuff from that one book where they were really lazy. Begins and Dark Knight obviously have other influences there, and even the last one too, even Rises. But so they're not lazy about it. It's just that that's how foundational this book is. If you're gonna do Batman Origin, this is the place to go. And so they smartly borrowed a lot of stuff and integrated them in really interesting ways. It's almost more like the way 1990 Ninja Turtles did it, where they're really only looking at a few comics, but they integrate them all in really creative and just smart, believable ways into one singular story. Yeah.
Yeah, smartly done. Hey, take from the best and don't make it worse, which some people do.
Yeah, which of course they didn't do. I still think Begins is the best Batman origin, and this is either a close second or combined with it would make it like the definitive one, because there's stuff in this that I wish somehow we could have gotten in those, of course. But anyway, I just wanted to mention that I was surprised that, going back to this, that Sarah Essen comes up with the idea that maybe it's Bruce Wayne, and of course she's right. And so they keep investigating, and they keep finding all the ways that Bruce is trying to cover his tracks, and going, well, he seems like a complete jerk face, but maybe that's a front. And he seems like he's just a playboy and he's constantly sleeping around all the time, but maybe that's part of the front. And they're always really suspicious of everything they're like. He's really rich. He's got all this money. Somebody would need to be that rich in order to be able to fund Batman. Dent doesn't have that kind of a pocketbook, so how could it possibly be him? Like, all the... What's really cool is this is a really good detective story that is about figuring out who Batman is, and Batman himself is doing very little detective work in this book.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, or we don't see a lot of his detective work, because he's bringing down a lot of criminals in the background and stuff. But a lot of what we're seeing him doing is just like tracing people down that he's figured out already. We're seeing Gordon actually do detective work.
Yeah. Yeah, I like when they had that bad confrontation and Batman gets like shot and stuff, and they're trying to figure out what Bruce Wayne's whereabouts, like just what his alibi is for the last few nights, and he's like already absconded to like some European country, and he's gone skiing, and his cover is that he like had a horrible skiing accident, and he's broken his arms and stuff, and that's why he's but even they are already like digging into that story, being like, oh well, that could be a cover like for that. Like they're already putting it together. They're just not stupid about it. They don't take anything at face value. They kind of keep digging at the light facade that is Bruce's cover story in the first place.
Yeah, and it's so cool how aware of that Miller is, and how difficult it would be probably for this guy to actually keep the secret. Dark Knight is also really smart about that too. You have that guy, Mr. Reese in Dark Knight, who figures it out, and you're like, okay, it wouldn't actually really be that hard. And so what is a realistic way to figure out how to like shut that guy up or put that whole thing to bed without people thinking too much about it and looking too far into it? This does exactly that same thing, where it's like, you want to kind of, if you're going to write this series of a Batman story, you want to kind of find a way to walk that line of the conceits to make the whole comic book status quo work and happen in the first place, but also figure out if you can be a little bit smarter about it also. And I think Miller makes that work. It's maybe difficult to do in the long term. But at least inside of the case of this story, like, he sets people up for failure a little bit. It gets a lot harder after this, where it's like, well, if Gordon figured it out that quickly, how come there's not more people that figure it out more quickly? Even on the police, on the police force.
Yeah. It took months of detective work. As we were shown throughout the run of the
there's some crazy red eyes. That was the one that stuck with me. It's the same guy on that other page, but like,
well,
it's not the same guy.
That's what it was. I was like, why are his eyes red?
It's like, oh my god,
it's scary.
And he says, "I'm fine," and he's like, ah.
Yeah, it's like, what's going on there? I always wondered that Mr. Reese, that Reese guy from The Dark Knight. Yeah. Why the second when Batman was like public enemy #1, did he not come out and be like, Bruce Wayne's Batman? Like, even after that, throughout that 9 years where Batman was like, he's disappeared, and he was all those deaths of those cops were pinned on him, and like, why didn't Reese do anything then? He could have came out at that point. Bruce would have had no foot to stand on, and he would have been right to turn him in.
I guess the idea is supposed to be, and there's the question of how much we should actually buy it. This also feels kind of conceited when we're talking about that example. There's that speech with Fox.
He was intimidated out of
where
it.
He's just intimidated by Batman, and that's like all it's supposed to be. And I'm like, oh, okay. I think at that point he'd probably just try to like hire some muscle, and then
I'm amazed it never came out after that. Anyway, that's That's my biggest plot hole of Dark Knight Rises.
Is it? Is that your biggest plot hole? Is that they did? Wait,
Rises?
That's the biggest thing you can think of with Rises. I know you like Rises, but we can all.
I know you like Rises
into that.
You hear this guy? You hear this guy over here? Oh, he's over here.
Hey, look,
hear that guy.
Hey, look. I don't mind you liking Rises, but there are much larger issues with that movie, and I could point them out if we were talking about that right now. But we're talking about year one right now. So, one thing I really wanted to make sure and bring up before we finish here is that I think the opening of this book, the paralleling of Bruce Wayne and Gordon and how they come into the city is freaking genius. It's just brilliant. So you have Bruce Wayne coming in by air, saying, "I wish I was on the ground so that I could keep track of how the inner workings are going on the ground." And he's like forced to be above everything because of his stature. And Gordon comes in on the ground, and he's always going to be on the ground. And like whatever these two people do, they'll never be able to get out of those positions. And I think that's just a genius way to open the story.
I absolutely agree. Yeah, I didn't really think about that too much. You're absolutely correct.
Yeah, it's really cool. And Bruce is not is certainly self-aware about it. He doesn't see himself above people. The like kind of lot in life he was dealt puts him in that position. And Gordon has drawn, you know, kind of a weaker hand in some ways. And he's gotten kind of a raw deal. He's gotten some bad luck. Now some of it he brings on himself, but a lot of it, you know, for the both of them is just the rotten luck they've had. The way, or in Bruce's case, I guess, with being like a super rich guy, because some of this, of course, is like a class system thing. You know, Bruce is up here and Gordon is here, and by the end of the story, Bruce doesn't want to be up here. He has to do what he's doing. He's got to spend that money for that insane estate he has in order to be Batman in the first place. But where he really wants to be is where Gordon is, and he cannot and never will be there. And there's almost something of a grass is always greener kind of thing going on there, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, it's absolutely a good point.
But in a genius way to compare those characters. I also love that Gordon right away is not just suspicious of Batman, but thinks that he's like one of the big problems in Gotham City. He's got to take him down. And he's like, there's a vigilante. I'm not going to have vigilanteism on my watch. We're going to take him down right away. And Loeb is for Batman, because he's solving some of the city's problems for them and making the cops look good. And as soon as Batman decides to go after the corruption, Loeb says, "You must take him down immediately, Gordon." And as soon as Gordon realizes that he's going after the corrupt nut jobs at top, he goes, Maybe we should let him keep doing what he's doing. Yeah. And Miller does a fantastic job of making me buy by the end that Gordon needs Batman, that Batman needs Gordon, and that Gordon is the only cop that would ever work with this guy. Like, it's hard enough to make him not seem like irresponsible or bad at his job so that Batman is necessary. You solve some of that by making, again, the police department such a horrible place that's not really about police work and, cops on the take and stuff, to the point where, like, you might get roughed up or even murdered if you don't get on the take with the rest of the cops, right? Yeah. And, but it's even yet another thing to make you buy that Gordon would want to work with another character who is, by definition, corrupt. Not that Batman is, like, corrupt in the same way the police is, but just that Batman doesn't play by the rules. He doesn't do things by the book. And Gordon wouldn't usually want to work with someone that roughs up people. We very early in the book have an example where Flass has, like, horrible police brutality, pretty clearly because he's a racist jerkface, right? It's pretty clear that he just, like, beats the crap out of this guy because he's black. And, or if not because he's black, just because he doesn't like, like street urchin people. But I think there's a reason that that's a black guy in that scene. And Gordon obviously doesn't want to work with people that are doing police brutality. Batman is making a point that that is sometimes necessary. And importantly, Batman's not doing it because he's racist or because a guy has a flip-out comb.
Oh, yeah.
Because that guy had a flip-up comb.
Like, oh, what? I made a mistake.
Yeah, this guy. Yeah. He's got a flip-up comb.
Right there.
Yep.
Oh, Flass. He doesn't care. He just doesn't care.
But interestingly, Flass starts to kind of almost come around at the end.
Yeah.
You remember that? Like, he doesn't become a good cop or anything, but he starts to go against Loeb by the end.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's the change that Jim has been bringing about. When you see a guy actually, like, stick to his convictions, although, you know, I don't know. Flass in general is a bit of a trash human being. But... you know, that's just the change that Jim Gordon inspires through his actions and actual leadership.
So how do you feel about the way the whole affair thing is handled and the kind of soap opera component to the story?
We don't really get, like, once it's over, it's over. Like, there isn't really too much given to it. Because obviously it was a hard thing for Barbara to go along with. But I think once we get that, you know, she gets the call and it says, you know, your husband's having an affair. She's like, I know, and then hangs up. Like, that's kind of where we leave it. We don't really, to my memory, they don't really resolve it beyond that, do they?
Oh yeah, they sure do. So by the end of the story, Sarah Essen has left town. And Gordon says, she seems to be doing okay wherever she is. She's in some other police department. And Barbara has stayed with Gordon, and they're just going to therapy.
Oh, yes, okay. Yeah, I do remember that line. Where Barbara's not really sure about the therapy or something like that, I think was one of the last lines.
Yeah, and what we'll do years and years later is we'll have him have an affair with Essen, and I don't know if this is retconned or if it's like a second affair, but they have an affair in No Man's Land, and Barbara actually does leave, and he ends up marrying Sarah Essen, if memory serves, and then spoiler alert, but Joker murders Sarah Essen in cold blood on the snow.
Oh my god. That was a whole journey I just went on.
And I did not remember for the longest time, I had to be reminded about this, that this is where Sarah Essen comes from and they have an affair like decades before that.
Crazy. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there isn't really too much aftermath to it. There isn't really so much to sink into outside of he had an affair, then he owned up to it, and then it was resolved.
I think the fact that he owns up to it is important. I like that he won't let himself be blackmailed. I like that.
I like that too.
I also like that he has enough respect for his wife that I buy that he might have at some point even done that despite the blackmail. And that doesn't happen. It does take the blackmail before he does that, but they've not been together that long. Okay, I don't remember how many months it is, and we could go back and track it because they keep giving us month stamps. But and you know, days and weeks and month stamps. But he is very apologetic about it from the very beginning. He even in there's the scene that I just showed you with him lying or sitting on the bed with his pregnant wife, where he says, I should just tell her right away what's going on and how I'm thinking about her. This is before he's even slept with Sarah Essen. He says, and I don't know if we know for sure that they sleep together. They make out a lot. I don't remember if there's a scene definitely with them in bed together, but I think it's implied that they must be sleeping together. I'm not sure. But he, because even the picture that they have with them, I think, is of them making out, not like the blackmail picture. I think it's of them making out and not sleeping together, but I don't remember. I'd have to go back and look here. But anyway.
I just remember making out.
So they're, So like he is feeling a lot of guilt just for making out with her, and for even they kissed once, and for even having impure thoughts about this character, and so you immediately kind of sympathize with him and why the pressure is getting to him. Obviously, what he's doing is not something you would condone, a man cheating on his wife, but Miller does a really good job of getting us in his head enough to believe why he would make this mistake, and he's a guy that remains sympathetic because he knows it's a mistake. He really wants to quit. He keeps thinking about quitting. There's obviously some chemistry and hormones getting in the way, mixed up with the fact that he is trying not to break, having to deal with all the corruption in Gotham, and being, having his life in danger constantly, and the fact that he is more compatible with Sarah than he is with his wife, very clearly, and that's a situation that I think a lot of people can kind of resonates with people. So at the end of the day, he certainly has to pay for it, but I like that they don't. I like that he's attempting to reconcile with his wife at the end. Remember that Sarah's about to leave him even before the blackmail thing happens. He says, like, she's going to leave town. That seems like the right move. And then the blackmail thing happens after, I believe, even after she's talking about leaving.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you're right. Yeah. I mean, pretty much all the things you just said there. I am glad that it did seem like he would have owned up to it eventually, and I would want Gordon to, at the very least. Like, I would want him to keep that from his wife. Yeah, he seems to be like that. The kind of guy is like it would just eat him up inside if he sat on it for too long.
Miller just shows that he really understands how people tick. In this is such a hard thing to pull off, to make me continue to care about this character even after he's doing that to his wife.
Yeah, absolutely. Because when it comes up, you're just like, oh no, Jim,
what are you doing?
Your wife is pregnant. You just brought her here to a strange, dangerous city, like.
And of course,
not very fair.
I'm such a, I like No Man's Land so much. I just kind of default think of Jim Gordon as a guy who has it in him to have infidelity with his wife,
as a philanderer.
I mean, not constantly, but so so how do you feel about the ending and the way Miller presents Bruce Wayne saving Jim Jr., who we talked about in our previous story, who later will grow up and become a psychopathic murderer?
Woo! Little Jim Jr., Jimmy Jr. I don't really have too much foreknowledge, or not foreknowledge, but like knowledge of all the stuff that happens way after this. It sounds insane. Or was that like in the Further Years series, or is that like just
I don't know where that first comes up, but I mean, the only thing that anybody really talks about with crazy Jim Gordon now is the thing we review. Oh, you know what? You weren't with me on that. I'm sorry. I was thinking about Black Mirror. You didn't actually review that with me. No, that was Kareem. I forgot you weren't there for that. See, I almost picked that for this, and then I needed to review it earlier, so I brought Kareem in. Go back and read Black Mirror, because James Gordon is a psychopathic murderer.
Ooh, crazy Jim Gordon. Baby, yeah. Is this Jim Gordon Jr. or
James Jr.? Yeah.
Okay.
It's this baby we're looking at right here.
It's a murderer?
He's a murderer. Yeah, Bruce should have just let him drop, really. No, I'm totally kidding. I'm totally joking.
Brought that information in, that completely changes my
Now, they do say for sure that it's a boy, right? Because he's wanting a boy, and then I think later they say, yeah. So this is James Jr. This is that child. Anyway, so Bruce Wayne comes in, and I don't know if Miller makes it clear enough how he knows where Jim is and gets there. I think it has something to do with him being at the house, and then I don't remember now. But he somehow knows that he's there, and dives under. At first, I thought it was kind of difficult to tell that it was supposed to be Bruce and what was happening in that scene. And then the more I read it, the more I think it needed to be played that way. You just got to really be paying attention. Like, it doesn't make sense if it's anything but Bruce being the one who comes in and saves the kid. And because that glasses line means nothing if he doesn't say that. But for a second, it's kind of hard to tell what's happening in that scene.
Oh, yeah. No, I agree. I like how they both show Jim and Bruce. Like, Jim has a motorcycle, Bruce has like a bike that he's chasing him after. That has nothing to do with anything. I just like that.
Well, yeah, but now that you bring that up, I also like that there's that repeated scene where he gets cut off by him twice. Do you remember that? So early on, he gets cut off by Bruce Wayne driving a car, and he's like, that Bruce Wayne, he's so wild and out of touch rich guy. And then and then the same thing happens to the motorcycle.
Yeah. Absolutely. Callbacks are the best.
Well, more like really good setup and payoff. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because there's another one of those that's really good with Loeb, where at the beginning of the book, Gordon says, "I will give you my best work," and then you find out that is not what Loeb is after. And so when you get to the end, and he's been taking down all these corrupt cops, and he's been doing the right thing and helping people. Like Loeb's angry that he stops that guy from. That guy in the crazy guy who was in Arkham that has the gun, and he's got to defuse that situation, and the other crazy cop would have come in and just ended up guns blazing, and a lot of people would have gotten killed, but Gordon gets through that without anybody getting killed, and Loeb is angry with him for that because he's embarrassed the cop that was going to come in and barrel in, and so at the end he's like Loeb's mad at him and trying to get rid of him, and Gordon says, "I told you I would give you my best work, and that's what I gave you." And that's really good parallel scenes.
Yeah. I think Brandon was that cop's name.
Yes, Brandon. Yeah.
Darn Brandon. He went on to become Joker 3000 in the Universe Q series. Cap, you haven't read that one, have you? Well,
there's no Joker 3000, is there?
You will know about Brandon Joker 3000.
Oh my god. I'm trying to decide if you're making a reference right now or not.
No, I'm just pulling it out of my bum.
Do you know about Robin 3000?
No, I was just
I
joking.
thought maybe you were making a Robin 3000 reference.
No.
Oh, I'm going to show you what Robin 3000 looks like. Because it's
Jimmy
crazy.
Jr. 3000 comes in, and they're all the 3000
I want to review
crew.
Robin 3000 at some point. I really do, because it's crazy.
Well, if we do a Robin show, we still haven't done a Robin show yet.
Oh, we got to do that at some point. Maybe we should do that next time. We should do Robin. But that wouldn't be the thing I want to review on the Robin show. Robin 3000 is not good or anything. It's very strange. It's
well, my favorite. Let's spoilers. My favorite Robin will be Michael Cera from the Lego Batman movie. That's my favorite Robin.
Look, that's Robin 3000. Literally from the year 3000. He
looks like Robin Hood.
Look at that robot that's just ripping off the mutants from Dark Knight Returns. Look at that. Oh my god. And see, there's Batman in Robin 3000, who, spoiler alert, is going to die in the first, 5 pages of that book. And then it's Robin after that. Yeah. Robin 3000. Robin 3000 was one of the first comics I ever got when I was a kid. I found it at a flea market. And it was not like a big influential book on me or anything. It's not the reason I was reading comics, but it's a weird thing I found back in the day. In the day. Okay, other major things that we need to make sure and bring up about Gordon here. Gordon and Batman Year One, and then we can go to the comments. I'm never looking at comments when we're doing this because I've only got 3 screens and I can't actually put you guys on the screen and look at you. So.
Oh yeah, my brain can't process Cap going on a run and reading the chat at the same time and not listening. My brain will implode if I try too many things. So I too ignore the chat.
I'm sorry for talking too much, Dan.
Yeah. That's okay. No, I can read and listen at the same time, but I have to, if I'm processing multiple ideas and already trying to I can't do it. I have to just all attention on you and follow what you're saying.
I didn't mean to totally take over. It's just Year One's a major thing and I had a lot of things to say about it.
I don't have too much beyond what I've already said, and the art's pretty.
Now, you had read this before, right?
Oh yeah. Back probably some 10 years ago or so. Maybe even longer.
This is easily my favorite Miller Batman thing, and I'm not a big Miller Batman guy, but I love Year One a lot. But is it yours, or do you like Returns better? And I don't know if you've read much else, but
well, I mean, for this, all Miller tends to almost be overwritten. And I feel like this kind of dances the line a couple times where it's maybe a little too overwritten.
That's a fair criticism.
But I mean, as far as Miller Batman is concerned, where does this land? Is that what the question was?
Yeah, it's just if you had to pick a favorite Miller Batman thing, would this be it, or would you even want to pick one?
This is a little bit softer than something like Dark Knight Returns.
Let's Well, that's one of the things I like about it, is that it's just it's such a straightforward, simple story.
Yeah, that's what I would probably say is like this is dense, but it doesn't feel as dense as Dark Knight Returns. So yeah, I mean it's an easier read. I don't know if that makes it better, but yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I would probably I would if it ever came around to like, oh, which one would I want to reread, I would probably pick this one up before I picked up Returns.
You know what? Somebody corrected me and said that this came out in '87, and yeah, it must have. That's true.
87.
Yeah, I saw a date somewhere that was 86. I'm sure that was just like when it was delivered to DC. But yeah, it came out in May of '87.
Okay.
David doesn't like the artwork for year one.
Well, I mean, that's subjective, I guess.
Sure. Absolutely.
For some things. There's a lot of art that I love. And then, I see people like, that's ugly. I'm like, all right, fine. But yeah, so some of it comes down to taste and some of it technical ability. I tend to like sketchier things. So
and
occasionally you get like a face like there's like a face right here.
Sure.
I don't know how close I can get, but that face is very interesting. That's an interesting face. But
it's an interesting face.
That's an interesting face. So I'm not going to say that's the best artwork of a face I've ever seen, but I like it kind of more impressionistic, a bit more. I do like solid lines. This has plenty of solid lines, but I do like a little bit more of a sketchy looking thing. This kind of hits the tone. There's plenty of working well with shadows. You got a cool little some flash frames where like guns going off and everything's highlighted for just that frame. Like that stuff looks really cool. There's interesting colors at play. It's a little, earthy. A lot of the colors are a bit more earthy / neon stuff every now and again. So it's an interesting color palette. And some of it can look a little jumbly. But I think that's overall, it's a feast for the eyes. I like it.
I don't know if there is a... Yeah, I think I should say, I think the storyboarding... the panel layouts rather are even better than the artwork. Again, pretty simple panel layouts, but I just think that it's wonderfully cinematic. The action in this is great and really understated, and there's not a ton of it. But when you get that whole thing with the building with the explosions and the cat and the bats and all of that, it feels like you're looking at a movie storyboard, and it's great.
This should have been called The Cat and the Bats and All That.
At least that chapter.
There needs to be a story. Yeah, there needs to be a story.
The cats and the bat and all that. Rohit Dahar. Wayne is actually modeled on Gregory Peck, not Cary Grant. This is especially emphasized in Kingdom Come, where he looks like older Gregory Peck. Yep, that's true, and I forgot about that.
Absolutely, you are correct.
Blue Dragon 5, I hear your points about comic versus the movie, but certain parts in the movie, how they're adapted, just kind of sing in a magic way. Okay, some of the action I think is really good in that. I just think the overall structure was kind of, and line readings and stuff. Was kind of a mistake to me, but I haven't seen it in a long time.
Great cast, but it's been a bit
and a little wasted in my mind. But also, I remember some of the animation looking really pretty, but the actual execution of the story didn't work for me. Dro, that "you have eaten well" line still gets me. Yeah, I love that too. Just looking through some of these comments real quick before we get to our final segment.
God, Robin 3000 sucks. Yep. That's Kyle.
Rohit Dahar, it's crazy Batman Year One influence both Begins and Mask of the Phantasm, which we should have brought up. This obviously is doing a lot with Phantasm, or for Phantasm.
Sure.
Specifically the idea of Bruce doing vigilante stuff pre-donning the Batman costume, which I would argue he's smarter about in that movie than he is in this. Like, he makes a lot of mistakes in both, but he seems weirdly dumber his first time out.
He's terrible in this. He's so bad.
Somebody explain to me why he wouldn't, as rich as he is, at least bring a different car and not his Porsche.
Yeah, I don't know. He's a dumb.
I didn't understand.
He had to learn.
Okay, Blue Dragon 5 confirmed the Pearl's Fallen Dark Knight Returns. I figured that was it, but I just couldn't remember. It's been a little while.
Yeah.
Blue Dragon 5 had to leave. Thanks for being here, man.
Bye, Blue Dragon 5.
I know we're going a little later tonight. It's year one. I had a lot to say.
Yeah. It'll be 1 year of Batmosphere. Come inside unless you fear us. Oh, hello, cat.
You're so good at rhyming. Have you ever tried just rapping on the spot? Or
I've done freestyle raps before. It ends up going terribly roughly 10 minutes in. Because I'll just stop. I'll run out of things to say, and then it'll all be embarrassing.
Amazing if you could get a whole 10 minutes of decent rapping, though. That's pretty impressive.
No, it wasn't decent before. It was just eventually I just couldn't do it anymore. I had a good one about Blockbuster that went on for a couple minutes, and that was about it.
It sounds like, boy, I would pay money to hear that. It sounds to me like you're maybe just better at freestyle Dr. Seussing than rapping.
Yes. I fear that soon I will hear the thing that... it's a mirror! It's a mirror! Ah, mirrors! It's a mirror.
Somebody called me an 89 movie fanboy. That's fair. Agreed.
Yeah.
I complain about things in that all the time, but I still love it. Oh, you got your cat. I wish my cat was down here.
I mean, Fisher, he's going to join the show now. You want to chime in? All right.
Well, he liked the cat. He liked the part with the cat.
Yes. When the cat was saved, he's like, hey, that cat kind of looks like me. I'm a little gray cat. I'm like, yeah, that's you, I guess. You're like, it's important that we all see ourselves in media.
Rohit Tahara wants us to do Robin year one if we do a Robin show. Which I've still never read. And I haven't read Batman year one either. I never read that also.
I'm just going to assume that's year one for everybody.
This was such a big deal that, lots of things have year ones, and not just in DC, I don't think. Like, year one became, like, a thing we do in comics. Yeah. Dro wants you to write a Dr. Seuss-inspired Batman book now.
Okay, all right. Dro can illustrate it. Dro will illustrate it. He's a comic book artist, so, yeah.
Can I consult?
We'll collab.
Can I be like, that never happened in Batman? What the hell are you talking about? If I say that
Joker 3000.
If I say that one time, can I get my name in it? If I'm just like, nuh-uh, and you're like, okay, consult.
Yeah, you're the green eggs and ham guy, the guy who doesn't like green eggs and ham. But in this case, you're like, you don't like the whatever the equivalent to that is.
It's like Jeff Loeb. It's like Jeff Loeb Batman. It's like, I will not read Jeff Loeb on a plane.
Oh god.
I will not read Jeff Loeb in the rain because it makes my books all soggy. Speaking of that, well, I was just thinking of Holly and the whole like trailing off the way her we're doing this again. The way her dialogue is written, every time Holly says something, she's got to like lengthen out or like emphasize so she's always like Selena.
Yeah, Selena. Every
single time.
I read the way she spoke it whenever I was reading her lines. I absolutely agree. Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool.
I also liked that everybody's got kind of a personality quirk, like, or at least a lot of characters do. Like Loeb has that thing where he'll say something and he's being condescending and he'll always go, "Yes, he does," or "Yes, it is." And he says that over and over again. It's like, that's how he always talks. Daniel Davis, the comic books you don't read.
Yeah. Yes.
That actually sounds like the Dr. Seuss book you should write.
Yeah. I like it.
I also have not read year 2 or year 3, Cladion. I know about those. And I have sold a couple of those, but I have not read them. One or both of those. But anyway, should we go ahead? We're coming up on 3 hours because Danz and I like to take our time on this show because we never get to hang out, and this is how we do our hanging outingness.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and, unless, Dan, you've just got to hurry up and hang it up and get going. Are you good?
Good.
Sweet. I'm just making sure because I always do this. You're always like, "No, it's fine. Let's just talk." And I'm like, "I know, but it's late, and I don't want to keep you up all night."
Yeah, it's fine. I can't even see. Before I could see on the screen like how long we've been going. Now I can't even see. So you could lie to me and tell me we've only been going for an hour and
we've
like, yeah, let's keep going.
About 49 minutes, Dan. Okay.
Dang.
So now we're gonna do a little bat chat with you, and we won't talk as long as we usually do because we've already gone so late. I don't know where the time went, Dan, but I'm sure it's my fault. And I'm gonna ask you guys this question, and then while we are discussing this question, which is a thing that we've already broached a little bit earlier in the evening, you guys can also leave us questions about anything Batman related, and we will try to tackle at least a couple of them. So any little topics you guys want to talk about related to Batman, it is the Bat Chat segment. It can be anything Batman related. Okay, Danz, this is the question I wrote down. Would a grittier, more understated approach like Year One, and I'm asking this because we know that Schumacher wanted to make a movie based on this book and like this book, would something like that have flown in movies after Batman Returns? Meaning, had he been allowed to make that, would it have been successful? Did it have any chance at doing the kinds of guns that Forever did? I don't think so, but did it have any chance at that, or doing well enough to keep making more? What do you think?
I can only imagine what the fan outcry would be of getting because we already got a rebooted Batman in a way. It was supposed to be kind of going off that old continuity, but also kind of it's its own thing. We make references, but we're not fully committed. It's kind of like we're just doing our own thing with Val Kilmer. We're just continuing on with what we were already doing. I don't know if we had gotten like a complete from the ground up. I'd imagine the immediate backlash wouldn't be that great. But that happens with every Batman movie every single time that happens until it comes out, and then we can judge.
Yeah, it's true.
I don't know. Yeah, I feel like people would have been resistant to the idea of it, but if it was good, then I think people would have been like, probably pretty accepting of it. But it really kind of depends.
It really does. And I just asked the question because I don't know how to answer it. Like, I get why he wanted that, and me too. If you want to be the like serious Batman comic purist, like a movie that is darker and grittier like 89 was, but actually has some character dimension behind Batman. Yes, of course, that's what I want. That's what Batman Begins finally gave us. But I think even Batman Begins is not as. I mean, Begins is obviously accessible enough. It was pretty popular, but this would have been less accessible if you'd done more or less this book on screen, probably. Yeah. Yeah, and we had there's a good long gap between not having Batman and Batman kind of being driven down into for Batman Begins, that was a pretty good point for that, but to have done it right after Returns. Yeah. It's interesting to think about, especially a Schumacher style thing, because I've heard him talk a little bit more about wanting to do a darker Batman. And because you said you've seen Lost Boys and stuff. I don't really know the flavor of that movie completely because I've never seen it, but he was definitely an edgier director. Did you ever see Falling Down with? No, I've still never seen that. That's a weird one. That's like white business guy having a bad day and then going on a shooting spree. It's a weird movie, but yeah, it's a weird vibe, and his movies have these all of his other filmography outside of the Batman movies have such this kind of edge to them. That I'm surprised that you don't really see any of that in his movies. Maybe a little bit in Forever. It can kind of get a little dark. But yeah, it would have been so interesting to see him come back to Batman and do something a bit more, something like Year One. And I think he would have had an interesting tone for it. Because something like The Client, that movie's about this kind of street kid who is, thrown into this murder conspiracy. And it's very much like a James Patterson novel sort of movie. It might even be based on one of those novels. But just the grittiness and the realness of the portrayal of that movie, to see that brought to a Batman thing after being so stylized with Tim Burton.
would have been interesting. And I definitely could have seen Schumacher doing that, as opposed to like just looking at his filmography, as opposed to what we got instead, this very colorful, flamboyantly presented movie. So many wide angle lenses. And yeah, but I would have been down for it completely.
And again, the studio would have never greenlit a thing like that. But all things being equal, if it came out, yeah, I can't begin to tell how exactly it would go. Somebody said it might be like it was with Begins, where it wasn't fully appreciated when it came out, besides by critics. I mean, people went and saw it, but it wasn't huge like Dark Knight was, and like Forever was, but it wasn't a phenomenon. And then people might appreciate it later on VHS. I just don't know how ready people would have been for that. It's hard to tell, because like, you look at how Returns wasn't really embraced, but then Returns didn't have a strong story and felt to a lot of people like weirdly a little mean-spirited. And the question is, how many people would have like appreciated that something that rough and tumble but character-driven was also not mean-spirited but just gritty? Yeah, the distinction between that. How many people would have actually really picked up on that? At that time, and with what they were used to with Batman and with what they wanted. First of all, you couldn't do a thing like Year One and really market it to children the way that even 89 and Returns were. Now, we did kind of market, of course, really every Batman movie to kids, but and I feel weird about that in some situations, with some examples. Begins, I think, got away with it a little bit better. It felt like it was almost aimed more at like teenagers than it was little kids. Which kind of helped. I've said this before, one of my favorite things is the Rice's storybook that just cuts out all of the, scary Bane stuff and just goes, Bane's in the sewer. Batman's going to go after Bane. I'm going to find that at some point and read it on air.
I loved your, I was catching up on some Geek Evolution content last month, and I was watching your review of, The Phantom Menace and the There Goes Jar Jar or whatever. Watch out, Jar Jar! Watch out, Jar Jar! You reading that story was just so funny, and your Jar Jar voice was hilarious. Yeah.
I was afraid I couldn't get away with the Jar Jar voice, and so I read it once without it, and it just didn't work. And I went, okay, fine. I just went full tilt, and I did the stupid Jar Jar voice, and I was like, everyone needs to turn this video off. And
I thought it was hilarious.
People seemed to think it was kind of funny. I just got messaged like,
it was so
Cap,
funny.
Your Jar Jar voice is eerily on point, and that's not okay. Like, I got that comment a lot. It was like, that's not right. Like, that's the impression you can do. Okay,
you're like reading matter-of-factly doing a Jar Jar voice, and it was just it was so good.
Let's answer some questions, shall we?
Yes.
You want to do that? Dan's like, no, I don't. Oh, all right. Daniel Davis.
Yes.
What characters would you like to see satirized in Harley Quinn? I think Captain Boomerang could be fun. I agree with that. Captain Boomerang could be a fun thing to do in that show.
Yeah. Oh, gosh. I mean, haven't they even done yet that I'm aware of?
I mean,
because I don't have a vast knowledge base. So
it's impressive, some of the stuff that they've thought to go to, but there's still planned. When they finally did, well, you haven't watched it yet. I don't want to give anything away. Never mind. I won't say that.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry.
For once, you're ahead now.
No, I keep forgetting I'm ahead now. I keep expecting you to know things I don't know. Yeah, because it was like that for so long. Anyway, the first thing that comes to mind, you guys all know what I'm going to say. Clock King. We got to do a satirical Clock King. It's got to happen.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Clock King was always my, like, I just always loved that episode of the animated series, so that character always just stuck with me, and I feel like he's had a life beyond of me just going, oh yeah, Clock King, like, because I always, like, I haven't followed much of the TV show stuff, and I know you have told me multiple times, like Clock King and Arrow is really good.
Awesome, yeah.
So, like, I can't... for me, it's always like, I haven't seen Clock King in anything other than that one episode, but I'm glad he's had a life beyond my random remembering and liking of his character.
Now, I haven't watched all of Season 2 up to where we're at with that yet, so there may be some characters I would bring up that they've done already. Please nobody tell me. I don't want to know. I want to be surprised. So, like, there's... Especially because we're in this whole No Man's Land thing. Who knows what villains are out there that they did already that I've not seen. But... Oh, and let me just say, and I don't think this is giving too much away because you won't be surprised that they did this. And I think you've already seen maybe the first thing they did with this character. I can't remember. But their Mr. Freeze is amazing. And that's all I'm going to say. Oh my God. Oh my God. He's amazing.
I don't think they've... I know Gus is voicing him. Giancarlo Esposito is voicing Freeze. And I'm like, oh, that's such a perfect pick.
Awesome. Yeah.
He could play live action Mr. Freeze. He actually, like, because when we were talking about Patrick Stewart last episode, I think he would also be
They strike that amazing balance of making me sometimes kind of laugh at things he's saying, but also making me really feel for that character. Like, they basically take animated series Mr. Freeze and dial it to 11 in that show, and it's
Nora.
Awesome. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. Cool.
Oh my God, the Nora thing in that show is messed up. I'll just say that. It's pretty messed up. But anyway, so...
That's why I love that show.
It's messed up.
That's why I love that show.
So, I'm thinking of characters, I don't know how they would satirize them, but just characters that I'm fascinated to see what they would do with them. Hugo Strange comes to mind, especially because you are dealing with a Harley Quinn that is a real psychiatrist. And it would be neat to see them go toe-to-toe because he's a psychiatrist. And again, I don't know what they would do to satirize him, but that could be interesting. And also, I just don't know what they would do with the Ra's al Ghul. Like, I kind of want to know. Like, what does that even look like?
What if Hugo Strange and Harley both went to the same evil psychiatry school? And then that could be their thing.
Oh, yeah, okay. I wasn't going to correct him, Rohith, because I wasn't sure if I was right about it. But yeah, so Alfred Molina is actually doing Mr. Freeze. And
is that wrong about you?
Is Lex Luthor.
He's Lex Luthor, yes.
But we have had some characters that are multiple characters voiced by one guy, and for a minute I thought maybe that was one of those examples, so I didn't say anything.
You're absolutely right. Yep. I was wrong. Look, I haven't gotten to it yet. Alfred Molina, yeah, buddy.
And he disappears in that, and I haven't seen him in a long time in anything on camera.
He's on Hulu's. On camera. I haven't seen him in a bit. He does a lot of voice work now. He was on that series on Hulu by Justin Roiland, Solar Opposites. He's in he plays a random character in a couple episodes. He was really good in that. But yeah, it's been a bit since I've seen him in anything.
So classic aesthetic Batman question. From Rohith. Bat costume as black and gray or blue and gray. It depends on the context for me. But I tend to lean toward blue and gray, personally.
Yeah, same here. Yeah.
Do you prefer yellow, oval, or no? Again, it depends on with the bat suit. If it's black and gray like you're talking about, I like it to not have an oval. If it is if it is blue and gray, then go ahead and go full tilt and put in the oval. Although that also looks good without it, but I don't know what you think.
Same. I'm pretty same aesthetics as you. I like the blue and gray. Red oval if it works for that.
Now, we could be different here. Long ears or short ears?
I like short ears.
See, I like them longer. But
I do like long ears too, but I'm kind of more like Adam West. Like the Ben Affleck Batman, like that suit design, everything. Like I love everything about that whole thing. Like I like the fat bat on the chest. I like the little ears. I mean, I don't mind a longer ear, but I don't know. I like the stubs.
And like for me, the larger Batman thing from Dark Knight is so distinctively that book. I like it in that context and nothing else. I have a really hard time with that being like a standard definitive continuing to move forward batsuit. I have a really tough time with it. Like it's wonderful in that context. It's so distinct and stylized. I just don't like pulling it out of that.
I hear you.
Slender yellow capsule belt or more militaristic brown utility belt? I'm always for the classic yellow. Generally.
Yeah, depends on the circumstance, but yeah, same. I like the good military style one though, like a tanner one, but I mean it really kind of depends. Like I like trenchcoat Batman. Like I like Batman when he adds extra things to his outfit. So I mean it's kind of whatever. It's got like Night Owl in Watchmen where he has his snowsuit and he has his his downtown insurgency suit. He has all his different suits.
Dro, that's a great question, and I would just need some time to think about it. I don't think off the cuff I'm going to give you the best answer. What is the most disappointing storyline of your favorite Batman villain? I'd have to really give that. some thought. I mean, it's super easy to go to Bane for like many things, right? Like,
I was about to say Bane for The Dark Knight Rises. Like, I definitely feel like I think that's a lot of people's issue with that movie is just like what they do with Bane in that movie.
Well, and see, what's really funny is when I said that, and I know people like to give me crap for dogging on Rises. I wasn't even thinking Rises when I said that. There are like 2 other places you'd go to before Rises. Batman and Robin, obviously, with Bomb, but also if we're just talking about like screen stuff, because he's not always handled great in comics either. I mean, like New 52 Bane is just like Rises Bane. Like he tried like Tomasi, I think it's Tomasi, tries to write him like a parody of Rises Bane. Like he talks like that, and it's very entertaining, but it's not what I want for comic book Bane. But anyway, you've also got animated series Bane, which is just a little lame. Like, a little better than I remembered it when I went back to it, but he's more thuggish than I want him to be, and he's not Batman's equal as far as, like, physical stamina and driving himself the way Batman does, like he is in the comics. I'm very, very particular about that character, and as particular as I am, what's really interesting about Rises is I was fully on board until I realized that he didn't really seem to have an ideology. So my problem with Bane and Rises isn't they didn't give me a version I liked. I liked the version. It's what he turns out to be. He's just kind of nothing at the end. That's my issue with that Bane.
Yeah, I concur. I agree.
But I still can't decide if that voice is dumb or not. I think that movie ends out differently, I love it.
Yeah.
I don't know. But yeah, just lots of things with Bane.
Extremely painful. Yeah, I like the voice, but I'm a weirdo.
But can you think of other Batman villains that there have been things that you just really, really hated, done with them in different things? Because I'm sure there's lots. I mean, there's lots of stuff that I could go to. And I just
Dr. Chase Meridian, but that character was... Oh, villain.
Yeah, you have to pick.
She is the villain in a way.
Your favorite Batman villain. It has to be a favorite villain. Chase Meridian. We can agree on one thing, Dan. Chase Meridian is no one's favorite Batman villain. We can all agree on that.
She's my least favorite Batman character. Yeah, villain. Oh gosh, I don't even know.
Next time we do this show, I want you to open up with your chair spun around to us, and then you spin in, and then I go, hot entrance. Oh, yeah, the whole Vicky Vale and Telltale Batman thing is really interesting.
Oh, yeah, I liked that.
That was fascinating. I actually
I like that a lot.
It doesn't totally come together and work, but I like it as a choice.
Yeah, it's almost twisty for twisty's sake, but I go with it. There's
a lot of other things I could say. Feel free to bring that up in a later show, and I'll see if we can come up with some other really good answers.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I think that is... I think that's going to do it for us tonight. Thanks so much for watching Batmosphere. I hope you had a good time. Dan, I really appreciate you doing it with me once again, man.
Yeah.
It is always
I had a lot of fun.
A real pleasure.
Yay! Got him to do it. Yeah, super fun talking Gordon and Batman and everything else in between.
Okay,
Batman
everybody, let's get some votes real quick. What topic should we do next time? Doesn't not have to be a character, doesn't not have to be a villain. We have lots and lots more of those left to go, but you just have to pick something in the Batman, in the Batmosphere that we can do a definitive version of and that we can find a good story to discuss. Dan, let's real quick, for people that don't remember, go down the things that we've done already. We've done Alfred. Let's see if we can remember it off the top of our heads. What have we done?
Okay. We started with Harley Quinn, right?
No, we didn't. You do this every time.
Alfred.
We started with Alfred,
and then Harley Quinn,
and then Harley Quinn. Yes.
And then Joker.
And then Joker. Wait, I don't even think Harley Quinn was the very
Maybe it was Joker and then Harley Quinn. I don't know.
No, it was Joker after that. But I don't even know if Harley Quinn was the very second show. I'm forgetting the order. But let's see if we can remember at least all the things that we did.
Okay, so Alfred, Joker, Harley Quinn, Batmobile, Batcave.
Yeah, Devin, we did Batmobiles already. Batcave we did a definitive version of, but we did it inside of a different show.
Why did we do that?
Because we did Batwoman second. And we did Batcaves and Batwoman because we couldn't say definitive because there haven't been enough of them.
Okay. Yeah.
You see. That's why we did that.
Oh, I see now. Yeah. What else did we get?
Clayface. We did Clayface.
Clayface, yeah, we did Clayface.
And then we did, and we did Batmobile's last show. I think that's everything. I think that's all of them.
Yeah.
And that's everything we've done so far. So all I'm seeing right now are a couple votes for Robin, one vote for Batmobiles, which we did already. One says best non-canon story, which we could do in a show at some point, but that wouldn't be like the whole topic for an episode. I mean, do we want to jump right into Robin after that? And if we do a Robin show, how do we do it? We've had this conversation before. Are we doing a Dick Grayson show, or are we doing a Robin show? And would you want to do a show that was Robin, and then eventually even do breakdown episodes where we do specific ones? Because that's also a thing we could do. But there could be too much retread there if we did that.
Yes.
Damn it.
No, yeah, I completely understand what you mean. We should probably, maybe we should do a broader Robin and then individually break down Robins eventually, or vice versa. I don't know. It is, there's a lot of layers to this onion.
We have like 4 votes for Robin though, so I'm thinking
we did already broach the Robin topic beforehand.
It would be a good time to do it. We'd segue really nicely from this into it, especially because we haven't had a story with Robin in it in a while. In anything we've talked about.
Yeah.
In fact, have we had one episode where we reviewed a thing that Robin was in?
I mean, the last one he was murdered, quote unquote, but not really.
We had a Nightwing in that story.
Yeah, and he wasn't Nightwing. He became Nightwing in that. He was just kind of Robin who had left, and he was deemed Nightwing throughout that story.
Yeah, that's true. One and Only Production says, doing all Robins, you can do specific characters, but should do an overall Robin show first. I think that'd be cool. So then when we pick definitive... Okay, let me suggest this. See, I like to plan everything actually on air. Let me suggest this.
Yes.
We do Robin next time. The rule for definitive Robin for next show is your favorite iteration of Robin, not your favorite version of a specific one. So we pick, like, Dick Grayson, Tim Drake, Jason Todd. Like, who's your favorite Robin of like characters that have been Robin? And then down the road we can do a Jason Todd show, a Dick Grayson show, a Tim Drake show, etc., etc. And then you can pick your favorite version of the character we're talking about. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I like that. So we're picking favorite character Robin next week.
Yes,
or next week.
Which means next show we need to pick. And you guys feel free to throw us ideas because a lot of people are bigger Robin fans than I am. I think it would be a good idea to try to find something that featured Robins, not a Robin. Do you see what I'm saying? Like multiple characters that fit that were in the mantle or something like that. There's some big stories comic book wise that come to mind. We haven't done a screen thing in a while, so if anybody can think of a good episode of something that does that, that would be cool. Because I know Dan really likes screen stuff, and I appreciate all the comics that we've been reviewing lately, Dan. But I know you also like screen stuff.
Under the Red Hood is pretty Robin centric.
It is, but I've done a lot of content on that.
Yeah, it's true.
I've got a rewind and a commentary on that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, my on-screen stuff. I don't even know what else really kind of touches.
Only Place of Dying is a great choice, but I would almost be more likely to do that in a specific Robin show. Have I reviewed Death of the Family? I think I have. So we probably wouldn't do that. We'll have to give it some thought. I don't know what we'll do yet.
Yeah.
But you guys feel free to message me privately or post in the comments on this video if you have ideas for Robin stories. Either in comics or on screen. I'll look around. I'd love to do an episode of something. But even Robin's Reckoning, we've got a commentary on the channel.
Yeah. I'm down for another comic.
Are you really?
That kind of delves into it. Yeah.
I was trying really hard to avoid it because I thought you might be sick of doing comics.
No, I mean, you get more story that way. And I've seen a lot of the on-screen stuff. Not everything, but those are always real short and kind of surface level. I'd like to know a little bit more about the history of some of these characters. So, yeah, I feel like reading all these comics, you get the gist.
Really sink our teeth into these stories and have probably more, better conversations.
Yeah, for sure. I'd be down for another one. I like that. I've been liking reading these runs. These runs. It's been fun.
Yeah. Giving
if I hadn't read this, it would have been amazing.
I will do a deep dive into Robin stuff and try to find some good contenders and throw some ideas at Dan, and we will figure out what we're doing next time. But you guys, again, feel free to throw us some ideas. But yeah, it will be easier to do a comic thing, so I'm glad you're open to that. Everybody, you guys are wonderful. We sure appreciate you. Hope you had a good time. We sure did. This is one of my favorite things that we do, and I love hanging out with Dan. And so it is just an absolute blast. We'll see you guys next month. We'll do a Robin show for you. And in the meantime, thanks so much for watching. I was Captain Logan.
And I was John Blake. Middle name Robin. I'm embarrassed by it.
No, your first name is Robin. You're Robin John Blake.
Oh, yeah, Robin John Blake. I don't like my first name. John is my middle name. That's the most plain middle name anybody could ever be given.
Oh my god, I really want to force you to read Robin 3000. That shouldn't be like the thing that we review, but it would be really fun to like tack that on. Anyway, well, thanks a lot for watching, guys. I am Robin 3000. I will destroy you. Why does Robin 3000 sort of sound like Krang at the end? It was like, I know. And then I'll be Batman 3000, where I'll have like that thing on my eye. And then Joker 3000, who I created this episode, and can't tell me is not a real character, played by Brandon, the cop. It's copyright. The cop, but not Brandon, like the guy who's on the channel. Yeah, not Brandon from Geek Evolution Brandon. It's Brandon from Batman Year One, that cop jerk guy. All right. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next time. Bye. Bye.